everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening. It's not good morning anymore. Unless it's good morning in the future. Good morning in the future. Evening? Yes, evening. I hope you guys are doing well. You're at the airport. Are you going somewhere or are you coming back from somewhere? Where are you flying? Home? Oh no. My... Oh no! Guys, my little chocolate box that I've been using to prop up my microphone's finally completely combusted. I'll have to use a tissue box now. Alright. That's more sturdy, I think, actually. Hi! The Virgin Islands, huh? Thank you for the lick, Lolly! No! I hope it was fun. Well, guys, today we might finish. I'm being positive. I think we'll be able to. It's like maybe like 100 and something pages. I read 100 something pages last time, so I think it's doable. I think it's pretty doable. Num 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 num. What's been happening? What's been going on? Nothing has been going on. You're in Miami. Wow. Is Miami warm right now? I hear that some places it's like dangerous hot. Right now, it's nice and cool. It's the first day of rain in a really long time. So I woke up in the night and it was like you could hear the rain and it was nice and comforting. I was happy. I'm pretty happy recently. I think that's a good thing. I think being happy is a good thing, guys. I had some instant noodles for lunch, and then I had a cake right before I pressed start stream. And I have some juice. Very, very, very yummy. I hate Metal, my recording software for my clips. Metal? Clips? What clips? Oh. Okay, if nobody dies in this book, that'd be pretty impressive. Because the only death toll we have is technically like someone who died in the layover. For my gaming clips. Oh, I just updated it. And when it opened again, it wanted to update again. What the heck? That sounds fishy. Suspicious, even. Huh? Oh my god! Honey! Oh my god! What are you doing? Hold on. You stuck? Oh, there you go. What the heck? The scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. Wanna get out? You wanna stay in my room? You wanna go? Oh my god. So I have like a little... What, I don't know what you would call it. You know how like people have like baskets that they can like carry behind them? Like little trolley type things. Usually they're like foldable or they're made out of like plastic. I have a really, really cute woven one. So it kind of looks like I'm like, you know, I'm on a farm or something. I'm going through the farmer's market. Gonna fill it up with some fresh veggies on a nice morning. Kind of that vibe. Very cottagecore-esque. I just have it in my room, but because I don't use it, I put like pillows and stuff in it. And all of a sudden, I just heard like this rustling, and I turn around, and Honey's head pops out, and she's never gone inside, or I don't know if she's ever gone inside before. This is the very first time I've ever seen her go inside it, and her head just pops out, and then she's like holding onto the edge, and then she tries to like get out, but she can't get out, so I had to help her out. Like, what? I wish I took a picture, but I didn't want to like accidentally take a picture of me because there's a mirror right there. It was like I'm like, I guess now I know where to look if she's like missing. But want to play Proteus, want to get a clip of a really cool arena level. Aw, captured nothing? That sucks. But at least you can get it again, Ash. At least you can get it again. But that would suck if it was like a once-in-a-lifetime like clip situation and then it just didn't capture anything. That would suck. Anyway, she's up on her cat tree having a little lick. Grooming herself. So funny. Cats are so funny. When I first got Honey, like it had been a few years since I had my last cat. And I had forgotten what it was like to have one because I got a dog in the meantime. And I don't know what it is about cats. It's just like they do things and it's so funny. Like they could just like like I remember like when I saw my cat like lay on the ground, I was like, I don't know why, but this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like just her flopping on her side. Cats are created by God purely for the sake of God. I know. So funny. And once when she was like a little tiny baby kitten, my friend was doing like peekaboo with her. And she like genuinely got so spooked by peekaboo. Like with hands and everything. It wasn't even like hiding the entire head. It was like holding like, you know, in front of her hands, go peekaboo, peekaboo. And she got so spooked, she like went into that, you know, like the cat kind of like arched back and her tail fluffed up and she kind of sprang backwards and fell off the side of the bed. It was so fun. Oh my god, I love cats so bad. They're just so fun to look at. I bet they feel the same way looking at us, doing things. Because cats just like watching people a lot, right? They just sit and watch. But they enjoy it. They're probably laughing at us too. Look at them. Look at them making their silly little food in their silly little kitchen. So funny. Anyways. I guess we'll start reading before I run out of steam. I don't think I'll run out of steam, but I might run out of steam. That said, I do have, my mom got me like this cream soda, like a special cute little pink cream soda can. And I'm like really, really excited to drink it. But I was eating like a spicy instant noodle and I was like, that's not going to go well. So now I'm like, okay, I'll wait until my palate kind of like, you know, settles and then I can like really experience it. So if I kind of get like tired in the middle of reading, I might like go get it. And then I'll be happy. Man, you know what, guys? I miss Kari. I was looking at some clips earlier today when we were playing the Penguin Heist, and I was like, man, missing some Kari content. I miss my Kari content! When will Kari return from the war? Maybe when it's winter. then it's like cooler. Cooler temperatures. She's not overheating. Okay, guys, let us begin. Some story reading. So, we're on chapter 17. Let me scroll up, see what was happening last time. Last time, I don't think much happened last time, did it? The crew set off on their journey. Yeah, they set off on their journey. They had to cross some thunder paths. They got separated briefly while, like, getting lost in gardens, you know. And then in the normal area, Leafpaw went to the Moonstone, had a weird kind of dream. Mothwing was there for some reason. I can't remember the plot in which Mothwing was involved in, but I guess must have been pretty big. Also, sorry for the dog barking in the background. Yeah, I think that's pretty much really it. The journey started, they're journeying, they're still alive, there's always some bickering between Crowpaw and Squirrelpaw. Leafpaw's more relaxed than she should be. That's what I'm thinking. Like, if I was anybody in the clan and I saw that Leafpaw was just doing her normal business, I would be like, Leafpaw knows. Leafpaw knows what's happening. Because, like, they're so close, I'd feel like she would be just so distraught if she didn't know anything. Like, just completely distraught. So the fact that she isn't, I feel, is a pretty big clue. She kind of knows what's going on. All right. Let us begin. Let us begin. I hope that you don't hear too much background noise, but maybe it'll just be good ambiance. I have no idea, because technically the crew is in Two Leg territory, so ambiance. Chapter 17. Brambleclaw jumped awake when a paw prodded him in his side. Squirrelpaw's voice meowed urgently. "Wake up, Brambleclaw! Feathertail and Crowpaw are gone!" Brambleclaw sat up, blinking. Tawnypelt was on her paws, and Stormfur was just emerging from the nest he had made for himself under a clump of ferns. But Squirrelpaw was right. There was no sign of Feathertail and Crowpaw. His head whirling, he staggered to his paws. The sun had already climbed above the horizon in a bright blue sky dotted with puffs of white clouds. A stiff breeze was blowing, rippling the grass in the field, but it brought no scent of the missing cats. For a couple of heartbeats, Brambleclaw wondered if they had gone home. They had not received the saltwater sign from StarClan. Had that made them feel like giving up, as if they had been judged and found lacking? And if Feathertail and Crowpaw had turned back, could he and Tawnypelt succeed if they were alone? Then he realized he was being stupid. Crowpaw might think like that, but Feathertail never would. And whenever the two cats had gone, they must have been together. And it was unlikely that a predator had taken them. There were no sense of danger here. And in any case, the noise would have woken the rest of them up. "See if they've gone for a drink at the pool," he suggested to Squirrelpaw, who was still gazing at him with panic in her eyes. "I already have," she mewed. "I'm not mouse-brained." "No. Okay, then..." Brambleclaw glanced around wildly, desperate to come up with a plan, and caught sight of two small figures, pale gray and black, approaching across the field. The wind blowing towards the broken-down wall had carried their scent away. "There they are!" he exclaimed. Feathertail and Crowpaw trotted briskly up to the stones. Their mouths were full of fresh kill, and their eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Where have you been?" Brambleclaw demanded. "We were worried about you." "You shouldn't have wandered off like that," Stormfur added to his sister. "What does it look like?" Crowpaw snapped, dropping the two mice he was carrying. "You were all snoring like hedgehogs in winter, so we thought we'd go hunt." There's a lot of prey over there. Feathertail gestured with her tail towards a thicket in the next field. We thought we caught a whole pile, but we'll have to go back and fetch the rest. Let these lazy lumps do it themselves, Crowpaw muttered. Of course we'll help, meowed Brambleclaw, his mouth already starting to water at the smell of fresh kill. You've done brilliantly. You stay and eat, and we'll fetch the rest of the prey. Crowpaw had already crouched down, ready to take a bite from one of the mice. Don't talk to us as if you're our mentor, he growled. He was obviously determined to be difficult, so Brambleclaw left him to it. In spite of the younger cat's bad temper, he couldn't help feeling optimistic. They had survived the trouble in the two-leg gardens. Tawny Pelt's sign meant that they were still following the will of StarClan, and now they had a good meal to look forward to. As he led the way to the thicket, he decided that things could be a good deal worse. What are those? What are those? Brambleclaw asked. 3 days had passed since the trouble in the two-leg gardens, and the journeying cats had traveled across farmland, avoiding two-leg nests dotted here and there, and meeting nothing more threatening than sheep. Now they were crouched in a ditch that ran along the line of a hedge between two fields. They were peering out at two of the biggest animals Brambleclaw had ever seen, which were running back and forth across the field, snorting and tossing up their heads. The impact on their huge feet made the ground shudder. Horses, Crowpaw replied loftily. His eyes gleamed as if he was delighted to know something that Brambleclaw didn't. They run across our territory sometimes with 2 legs on their backs. Brambleclaw thought he would never hear the end. Forgot to loop our music. Brambleclaw thought he had heard anything. He thought he had never heard anything so mad in his life. I guess 2 legs want 4 legs sometimes, he joked. Crowpaw shrugged. Can we please get going? Squirrelpaw mewed plaintively. There's water in this ditch. My tail's getting wet. Fine, go, Brambleclaw muttered, but I don't fancy getting crushed. I don't think those horses are dangerous, Stormfur meowed. We've seen them at the farm on the edge of RiverClan territory. They never pay much attention to us. If they did tread on us, they wouldn't mean to, Feathertail added. Brambleclaw felt that wouldn't be much consolation. A blow from one of those feet, which looked like chunks of weathered stone, could break a cat's spine. We just need to run across while they're down at the other end, Tawny Pelt pointed out. I doubt they'll follow us. They must be quite stupid, or they wouldn't let 2 legs on their backs. Okay, that sounded like good sense to Brambleclaw. Straight across this field and through the hedge opposite. And for StarClan's sake, let's stay together this time. They waited until the horses had cantered off to another end of the field. Now! Mewed Brambleclaw. He launched himself into the open, wind screaming through his fur, aware of his companions racing beside him. He thought he could hear the pounding of the horses' massive feet, but he did not dare slow down to take a look. Then he was leaping the ditch that bordered the hedge on the far side and plunging into the shelter of low-growing bushes. Peering out cautiously, he saw that the others had reached safety with him. Great, he meowed. I think we're starting to get the hang of this. It's about time, Crowpaw sniffed. There were large animals in the next field, too, this time standing together in the shade of a couple trees, swishing their tails and munching grass. These were cows. Brambleclaw had seen them near Ravenpaw's barn on his apprentice journey to Highstones. They had smooth black and white pelts and enormous eyes like giant peaty pools. The cows seemed to take no notice of the group of cats until they crossed this field more slowly, keeping an eye on the animals as they brushed through the long, cool grass. It was almost sun-high, and Brambleclaw would have been happy to settle down for a nap, but he knew that they had to go on. He kept checking the position of the sun in the sky, impatient for it to start going down so that he could be sure they were still traveling in the right direction. Where the sun touched the horizon, that was the sun-drowned place. Brambleclaw pushed away his nagging worry that they would have nothing to guide them if the clouds came to hide the sun, and he hoped the good weather would hold. Leaving the cows behind, they came to a field so huge they could not see the other side. Instead of grass, it was covered with thicker stems, yellow and stiff like straw in Ravenpaw's barn, cut short so they were hard and spiky to walk on. What Kirby you found? Thank you for the follow, Trudy! In the distance, they could hear the roar of a monster. It's over there! Squirrelpaw had leaped onto a low branch of an elder tree and was growing in the hedge. A huge monster in the field! This far from any thunderpath! What? It can't be! Brambleclaw leaped up to the branch beside her. To his amazement, Squirrelpaw was right. A monster far bigger than most of the others that had traveled along the thunderpath was roaring slowly across the field. Some sort of cloud surrounded it, filling the air with churning yellow dust. Satisfied? Squirrelpaw meowed sarcastically. Sorry. Brambleclaw jumped down to rejoin the others. Squirrelpaw's right. There's a monster in the field. Then we better get on as quickly as we can, before it sees us, Stormfur meowed. They're supposed to stay on the thunderpath, Feathertail complained. That's not fair. Crowpaw dabbed wearily at the thick, spiky stems in the field. This is no good, he spat. We'll all have scratched pads if we try walking across this. We'll have to go around the edge. He glared at the other cats as he spoke, as if he were expecting one of them to contradict him, but there was no reply except a murmur of agreement from Feathertail. Crowpaw had good ideas, Brambleclaw decided, if only he'd be less aggressive about sharing them. I don't know what that link is. The Wind Clan apprentice led the way and the rest followed, keeping close to the hedge so that they would be able to hide if the monster came after them. There was a narrow grassy space between the hedge and the rough yellow stems, just wide enough for the cats to walk in single file. Look at that, Tawnypelt exclaimed. She twitched her ears towards a mouse crouched among the spikes, nibbling at seeds that were strewn on the ground. Before any other cat could move, Squirrelpaw pounced, rolled over among the cracking stems, and scrambled to her paws again with the mouse in her jaws. Here, she meowed, dropping it in front of Tawnypelt. You saw it first. Catch my own thanks, Tawnypelt meowed dryly. Now that Brambleclaw knew what to look for, he realized that there were more mice scuffling among the stems, stuffing themselves on the scattered seeds. It was almost as if StarClan had sent them the chance to hunt and feed well. Once Squirrelpaw had eaten, he sent her to keep watch in another tree, to report if the monster changed direction and came towards them. But the monster kept its distance. Brambleclaw felt more hopeful and stronger from the food when they went on, especially as the sun started to sink and he could check the direction. Before long, they were able to leave the strange spiky field, and the going became easier. The air was heavy with the heat of the day, bees hummed in the grasses, and a butterfly flew past. Squirrelpaw dabbed a paw at it, but she looked too drowsy to chase it. Tawnypelt had taken the lead as they approached the edge of the meadow, with Stormfur and Squirrelpaw just behind her, and Crowpaw with Feathertail. Brambleclaw, bringing up the rear, kept a lookout behind for possible danger. This time there was no hedge, but a two-leg fence, made of some thin, shiny material. It was a kind of mesh, like interlaced twigs, except that the spaces were irregular. They were too small to climb through, but there was a gap at the bottom where a cat could flatten itself against the ground and squeeze underneath. Brambleclaw scrambled his way under, feeling the fence of scruff. I lost my place. Hi, Cordy! I'm good! Oh my god! Sorry about that. I pressed the link that this person sent. I'm so sorry. I should not have pressed that. I don't know what this says. But I'm good, Cordy. How are you? Oh, I went undercover as a TikTok NPC, is what it was. It was very loud in my poor little eardrums, and I apologize to everybody listening. Oh Let's see. Brambleclaw scrabbled his way under, feeling the fence stuff scrape against his back. Beside him, Stormfur was doing the same. As Brambleclaw straightened up again, he heard a furious wail from further down the fence. I'm stuck! The voice was Squirrelpaw's. Heaving a sigh, Brambleclaw padded along the fence towards her, with Stormfur beside him. Crowpaw and Feathertail were already standing beside the young apprentice, and Tawnypelt came up a moment later. Well, what are you all staring at? Squirrelpaw meowed. Get me out! The ginger apprentice was flat on her belly, halfway beneath the fence. Just where she had tried to slide through, the fence stuff had started to come unraveled, and the ends were tangled in her fur. Every time she wiggled, the sharp ends of the fence stuff, dug into her skin and made her squeak with pain. Doing good, trying to round up everyone. Ooh! That might be fun with Bonnie! Sorry, I usually only respond between chapters. I'm pretty distracted today. Okay. I gotta stay on track. Keep still, Brambleclaw ordered. He turned and studied the sturdy wood post. Then we can see what we can do. Maybe if we dig up the fence post, the stuff will come loose. The post looked pretty solidly set in the ground, but if they all helped, it would be quicker to bite through the fence, Stormfur argued. He tugged at the shiny strands with his front teeth, but they did not give way. He straightened up, spitting. No, this is too tough. I could have told you that, Squirrelpaw meowed. Far better to bite through her fur than free her that way. You leave my fur alone, Mousebrain, Squirrelpaw snapped. The Wind Clan apprentice bared his teeth with the hint of a snarl. If you'd been more careful, this wouldn't have happened. If we can't get you out, you have to stay here. Also, I'm just gonna close this window because somebody is just making a lot of racket. It's my mom. My mom is making the racket. I think you can probably still hear it, but hopefully it's not as loud as it was before. No, she won't. Stormfur rounded the other cat. I'll stay with her if no one else will. Fine. Crowpaw shrugged. You stay here, and the 4 of us who are actually chosen will go on without you. PJ, join us. Stormfur's neck bristled, and he sank his weight into his hunches so that his leg muscles bulged under his dark gray fur. The 2 cats were heartbeats away from a fight. With a stab of panic, Brambleclaw realized that 2 or 3 sheep had wandered up and were staring at the group of cats. While from further away came the sharp barking of a dog. They would have to move quickly. That's enough, he meowed, thrusting himself between the 2 hostile toms. No cat is being left behind. There must be a way to get Squirrelpaw out of here. He turned back to the apprentices to see Tawnypelt and Feathertail crouched beside her. Feathertail was chewing up dock leaves. Honestly, she exclaimed as she spat out the last of them and shot an exasperated glance at Brambleclaw. 2 you toms never do anything but argue. It's what they do best, Tawnypelt mewed, a gleam of amusement in her eyes. That's right. Spread the dock leaves on her fur. That should make it good and slippery. Breathe in, Squirrelpaw. You've been eating too many mice. Brambleclaw watched as Feathertail worked the chewed-up dock on Squirrelpaw's pelt, rubbing it in with a forepaw around the fence stuff. Now try again, Tawnypelt directed. Squirrelpaw scrambled against the ground with her forepaws and tried to use her hind legs to push her forward. It's not working, she gasped. Yes, it is. Feathertail's voice was tense, and she pressed her paw against Squirrelpaw's shoulder, which was slippery with green slime. Keep going. And hurry, Brambleclaw added. The dog barked again, and the watching sheep scattered. Dog scent drifted towards them on the breeze, getting stronger. Stormfur and Crowpaw braced themselves to flee. Squirrelpaw gave one last enormous heave and shot into the field. A knot of ginger fur slid off the fence stuff. A few strands of it were left behind, but Squirrelpaw was free. She stood up and shook herself. "Thanks!" She meowed to Feathertail and Tawnypelt. "That was a brilliant idea!" She was right. Brambleclaw wished he had been the one to think of it. But at least they could get going now, straight into the path of the setting sun, and quickly, before the dog reached them, he led the way across the next field, confident that StarClan were guiding them. When he woke the next morning, Brambleclaw was dismayed to see the sky covered in a thick layer of cloud. His confidence in StarClan's guidance faltered. This was what he had been afraid of. Perhaps it was just luck that had kept the sky clear until now. How was he supposed to know which way to go if he couldn't see the sun? Scrambling to his paws, he saw that his companions were still sleeping. The night before, they found no better shelter than a hollow place in a field under a couple of scrawny thorn trees. Brambleclaw found that he was growing more and more nervous without the familiar forest canopy overhead. He had never realized before how much he and his clanmates relied on the trees for prey, for shelter, and for concealment. Anxiety over Blue Star's prophecy bit even more sharply, as if Badger's teeth were closing in on his neck. Paws itching to be on their way, he climbed the side of the hollow and looked around. The sky was an unbroken gray. The air felt damp, as if there was rain to come. In the distance was a belt of trees, and the walls of more two-legged nests. Brambleclaw hoped the path would not lead them back among two-legs. "Brambleclaw! Brambleclaw!" Some cat was calling his name excitedly. Brambleclaw turned to see Feathertail racing towards him up the side of the hollow. "I've had it!" she exclaimed as she drew closer. "Had what?" "My saltwater sign." Feathertail let out a delighted purr. "I dreamed of padding along a stretch of stony ground, with water washing over it. I bent down to take a drink. The water was all salty, and I woke up tasting it." "That's great, Feathertail!" Brambleclaw's anxiety faded a little. StarClan was still watching over them. "That means Crowpaw's the only one of us who still hasn't had a sign," Feathertail went on, glancing down into the hollow where Brambleclaw could see the gray-black curve of Crowpaw's back as he slept in a clump of grass. "Maybe we shouldn't tell him about your dream, then?" he suggested uneasily. "We can't do that." Feathertail looked shocked. "He'd find out sooner or later, and then he'd think we were deliberately deceiving him. No," she added, after pausing to think. "Let me tell him. I'll wait to catch him in a good mood." Brambleclaw snorted. "You'll wait a long time for that." Feathertail let out a faint meow of distress. "Oh, Brambleclaw, Crowpaw's not so bad. It was hard for him, leaving the forest just when he was about to be made a warrior. I think he's lonely. I have Stormfur, you have Tawnypelt and Squirrelpaw. We all knew each other before this, but Crowpaw is on his own." Brambleclaw hadn't thought of it like that before. It was worth thinking about, though it wouldn't make it any easier to get on with Crowpaw the next time he started arguing the smallest point. "We're all loyal to our clans," he meowed, "and to the forest and the warrior code. Crowpaw's no different. He'd be fine if he didn't want to be a leader all the time, when he's no more than an apprentice." Feathertail still looked uneasy. "Even if you're right, it will make it easier for him, knowing he's the only one who hasn't had a vision." Briefly, Brambleclaw touched Feathertail's muzzle with his own. "You tell him, then, when you think best." Glancing around, he added, "We better wake them all and get moving, if we can work out which way to go." "That way." Feathertail sounded confident as she waved her tail towards the belt of trees on the far side of the field. "That's where the sun went down last night." "And after that?" Brambleclaw wondered. If there was no sun, how could they find their way? Would StarClan send them somewhere else to help them find the sun-drowned place? As he padded down into the hollow to wake his companions, he sent up a quick prayer to his warrior ancestors. "Show us the way, please, and guard us all when the trouble comes, whatever it is." Chapter 18. Okay, I'm going to be totally focused in this chapter. Totally focused. Only commenting when I'm done the chapter. I'm straight on it. I'm straight on it. Chapter 18. We're running out of celandine. Cinderpelt poked her head out of the cleft in the rock. I've used nearly all of it to soothe Longtail's eyes. Do you think you could get out and get some more? Leafpaw looked up from the daisy leaves she was chewing into a paste. Sure, she meowed, spitting the last scrapes. This is just about ready. Do you want me to take it along to Speckletail? No, I'd better check on her myself. Her joints have been acting badly since the weather turned so damp. Cinderpelt came out of her den and let out a purr of approval as she nosed the chewed-up leaves. That's fine. Off you go. And take a warrior with you. The best celandine grows near 4 trees, along the RiverClan border, and RiverClan aren't happy that WindClan are still coming down to drink their river. Leafpaw was surprised. Still? But there's so much rain. They must have water on their own by now. Cinderpelt shrugged. Try telling that to WindClan. Leafpaw put the news out of her mind as she brushed through the fern tuttle into the main clearing. That quarrel had nothing to do with ThunderClan, and most of her thoughts were taken up with anxiety about Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw. The sun had risen 4 times since she saw them leave. A private sense of Squirrelpaw told her that her sister was still alive, but she knew nothing about where they were or what they were doing. She had not eaten that morning, so she padded across the fresh kill pile, where Sorreltail was finishing off a vole. Hi! The young tortoiseshell warrior flicked her tail in greeting as Leafpaw chose a mouse for herself and settled down to eat. Leafpaw returned her greeting. Sorreltail, she asked, are you busy this morning? No. Sorreltail gulped down the last of her vole and sat up, swiping her tongue appreciatively around her jaws. Did you want something? Cinderpaw has asked me to go. How did I do her voice last time? Cinderpelt has asked me to go. Cinderpelt has asked me to go towards 4 trees by RiverClan border to collect some celandine. She said I should take a warrior with me. Oh, yes! Sorreltail sprang to her paws, excitement gleaming in her amber eyes. In case WindClan accidentally stray into our territory, yes? Just let them try! Leafpaw laughed and quickly ate the rest of her mouse. Right, I'm ready. Let's go. As they approached the end of the gorse tunnel, Firestar appeared, followed by Breakinfur and Rainwhisker. Leafpaw felt a thorn stabbing at her heart when she looked at her father. His head was down and his tail drooping, and even his flame-colored pelt seemed dull. Nothing? Sorreltail asked him quickly. Leafpaw realized that she knew exactly what their leader had been doing. Firestar shook his head. Not a trace of them. No scent, no paw marks, nothing. They've gone. They must have left the territory days ago, Breakinfur meowed somberly. I don't think there's any point in sending out more patrols to look for them. You're right, Breakinfur. Firestar let out a heavy sigh. They're in the paws of StarClan now. Leafpaw pressed her muzzle against his side, and his tail curled around to brush her ears before he padded off across the clearing. Leafpaw saw Sandstorm meet him at the base of the high rock, and the 2 cats went off together towards Firestar's den. Guilt swept over her as she remembered how much she was hiding. Most of all, the certainty that Squirrelpaw was safe, though far from ThunderClan territory, and every hair on her pelt prickled so much that it seemed impossible that no other cat noticed as she followed Sorreltail out of the camp. As the sun rose higher and the morning mists cleared away, the day promised to be hot, although the red gold leaves on the trees showed that Leafpaw had taken over the forest. Leafpaw and Sorreltail headed towards 4 trees. The medicine cat apprentice purred with satisfaction as she watched Sorreltail dashing ahead to investigate every bush and hollow that they passed. There was no sign of the shoulder injury that had kept Sorreltail from her warrior ceremony for so long, and no trace of bitterness that she had waited twice as long as other apprentices to receive her warrior name. Though she was older than Leafpaw, she still had the joyful energy of a kid. As they drew close to the RiverClan border, Leafpaw heard the soft rush of a river, and caught glimpses of it sparkling through the undergrowth at the edge of the trees. She found huge clumps of celandine where Cinderpelt had suggested, and settled down to bite off as many stems as she could carry. I can take some too, Sorreltail offered, glancing back as she padded up to the border. Thank you for the follow. Yuck! RiverClan scent marks. They make my fur curl. She stood gazing out over the slope that led down to the river, while Leafpaw got on with her task. It was almost finished when she heard her friend calling to her. Come and look at this! Bounding to Sorreltail's side, Leafpaw looked down at the slope to see a large group of WindClan cats gathered beside the water to drink. She recognized Tallstar and Firestar's friend One Whisker among them. They are still drinking at the river! And look at that! Sorreltail pointed with her tail to where a RiverClan patrol was crossing the two-leg bridge. If you ask me, there's going to be trouble. Mistyfoot was at the head of the patrol. She had brought with her her new warrior, Hawkfrost, and an older cat Leafpaw did not know, a tom with black pelt. They padded down the slope and stopped a few fox lengths away from the WindClan cats. Mistyfoot called out something, but she was far too away for Leafpaw to hear what she had said. Sorreltail's tail twitched. I wish we could get a bit closer. I think crossing the boulder would be a really bad idea. Leafpaw meowed nervously. Oh, I know that. Looks like it could be interesting, that's all. She sounded resigned, as if the thought of helping RiverClan settle their border dispute had appealed to her. By now, Mistyfoot's fur was bristling furiously. Her tail fluffed out twice its size. Tallstar left his clanmate and came closer to talk to her. Hawkfrost said something urgently to the RiverClan deputy, but she shook her head and he took a pace back, looking angry. Eventually, Tallstar returned to his clanmates, who finished drinking and set out into their own territory. They took their time. It looked to Leafpaw as if they were leaving because they had finished, not because Mistyfoot had ordered them off. Several of the WindClan cats hissed at the RiverClan patrol as they passed, and Leafpaw could tell that Mistyfoot had her work cut out, holding back her two companions from a fight. They were badly outnumbered. Leafpaw could only guess how frustrated Mistyfoot must feel that she couldn't enforce her territory boundaries, thanks to the agreement with the last gathering. When WindClan cats had vanished in the direction of Four Trees, Mistyfoot gathered her patrol together to lead them down beside the river. Impulsively, Leafpaw called out to her. The RiverClan deputy turned and spotted her, and after a heartbeat's hesitation, padded up the slope to join her and Sorreltail in the border. Hello there, she meowed. How's the prey running with you? It's fine, thank you, Leafpaw replied. She flashed a warning glance at Sorreltail, thinking it would be as well to not mention the confrontation with WindClan they had just witnessed. All is well in RiverClan? Mistyfoot inclined her head. Yes, everything's fine, except... She paused and then went on. Have you seen anything of Stormfur and Feathertail? They disappeared from our territory 4 dawns ago. No cat has seen them since. We tracked them as far as 4 Trees, but of course we couldn't search the other clan's territories. Hawkfrost added, coming up in time to hear what his deputy was saying. The Black Warrior stayed where he was, keeping watch beside the river bank. Hawkfrost dipped his head courteously to Leafpaw and Sorreltail. He was a powerful tabby with glossy black pelt, and for a heartbeat, Leafpaw thought he reminded her of some cat he had seen before. But no other cat in the forest had such icy, piercing blue eyes. What do you mean? She asked. Feathertail and Stormfur have left RiverClan? Yes. Mistyfoot's eyes were troubled. We thought they must have decided to go to ThunderClan to be with their father. Leafpaw shook her head. We haven't seen them. But we've lost cats too, Sorreltail exclaimed, lashing her tail eagerly. And... yes, that was 4 dawns ago. What? Mistyfoot stared at her in disbelief. Which cats? Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw, Leafpaw replied, wincing. She wished Sorreltail hadn't blurted that out. Her instincts had been to keep their disappearance secret from other clans, but there was no taking the words back now. Is something taking them away? Mistyfoot spoke almost to herself. Some predators? She shuddered. I remember those dogs. No, I'm sure that's not... Oh, sorry. No, I'm sure that's not what has happened. Leafpaw wanted to reassure her without giving away the secret that only she knew. If it was a fox or badger, there would be traces, scents, droppings, something. The RiverClan deputy still looked doubtful, but Sorreltail's eyes brightened. If they all decided to leave the forest, perhaps they've gone together, she suggested. Mistyfoot looked even more confused. I know Feathertail and Stormfur sometimes felt the clan still blamed them for having a father in RiverClan. in ThunderClan, not RiverClan. Father in ThunderClan. She meowed. And Brambleclaw has to bear the burden of being Tiger Star's son, but Squirrelpaw? What reason could there be for her to leave her home? Only the fire and tiger prophecy, Leafpaw thought, and then remembered that Squirrelpaw herself had no knowledge of it, only what must have seemed to be unfair criticism from their father. It was the prophecy in Brambleclaw's dream that had sent Squirrelpaw on her journey, but for now Leafpaw could say nothing about either prophecy. Perhaps other clans have lost cats too, Hawkfrost meowed. We should try to find out. They might know more than we do. True, Mistyfoot agreed. Casting a grim look back towards the bank where the WindClan cats had gathered to drink, she added, Be easy enough to ask WindClan, but no cat will be able to speak to ShadowClan until the next gathering. That's not long now, Leafpaw remarked. Are you sure it'll be easy to speak with WindClan? Are you sure it'll be easy to speak with WindClan? Sorreltail ventured boldly, as if she were challenging Mistyfoot to admit that WindClan still drank freely inside RiverClan borders. Mistyfoot drew back a pace, suddenly taller and with eyes like cold fire. From anxiously sharing her worries with Leafpaw, she had become the RiverClan deputy again, guarding her clan's weakness. I suppose you saw what happened, she hissed. Tallstar has broken the spirit of his agreement with Leopardstar. She allowed them to come down to their territory only because they had no water in their own territory, and he knows it. We should drive them off! Hawkfrost's voice was hard. His pale blue eyes stared stonily in the direction where the WindClan cats had disappeared. You know Leopardstar has forbidden that. Mistyfoot's tone suggested she had gone over this argument before. She says that she'll keep her word no matter what Tallstar does. Hawkfrost bowed his head in agreement, but Leafpaw noticed that his claws flexed in and out as if he itched to rake them over the pelts of the cats who had invaded his clan's territory. Forceborn or not, he was growing into a formidable warrior, she reflected, as exceptional in his way as his sister, Mothwing. Say hi to Mothwing for me. Say hi to Mothwing for me, she mewed to him, and with a sudden thought darted back into the clump of celandine. Grabbing up a few of the stems she had bitten off, she hurried back and dropped them at Hawkfrost's paws. She might like to have those, she told him. Cinderpelt uses it to help cats with weak eyes. I think it grows better on our side of the border. Thank you, Hawkfrost replied with a nod of gratitude. We'd better be on our way, meowed Mistyfoot. Leafpaw, tell your father about Stormfur and Feathertail, and ask him to let us know if he hears anything. Aw, dang, Greystripe's gonna be so sad. Yes, Mistyfoot, I will. Guilt swept over Leafpaw yet again as she watched the RiverClan patrol pad away upriver. She felt again the burden of being the only cat to know about both prophecies. One that had sent Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw on a journey who knew where, and the other left Firestar convinced they would be involved in the destruction of his clan, and yet her knowledge was not enough. StarClan had not chosen to tell her about the destiny of the forest, and Leafpaw did not feel that even the full moon, shining down on the next gathering, would shed much light on her dark questions. By the time Leafpaw and Sorreltail returned to camp, loaded with celandine, it was almost sun-high. We better report to Firestar, Sorreltail meowed when they had taken the herbs to Cinderpelt. He'll want to know about those missing RiverClan cats. Leafpaw nodded and led the way to her father's den beneath the high stone. The clearing was full of cats enjoying the last of the heat of early leaf fall. Spiderpaw and Whitepaw were sprawled in the shade of the ferns that sheltered their den, while Cloudtail and Brightheart shared tongues in a patch of sunlight. Ferncloud was sitting outside the nursery with Dustpelt beside her, watching their kits as they played together. Yes! A wave of sadness swept over Leafpaw. It was almost as if Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw had never been part of ThunderClan, as if they had sunk out of sight as a drowning cat might sink in a river, the waters closing over its head. The feeling ebbed a little when they reached Firestar's den and called out to him. Leafpaw heard his voice telling them to enter, and she brushed past the curtain of lichen to see him curled up in his nest. Greystripe was sitting next to him, and the anxiety in the eyes of both cats was enough to reassure Leafpaw that her sister and Brambleclaw had not been forgotten. "We've brought news!" Sorreltail meowed immediately, and poured out what Mistyfoot had told them about Feathertail and Stormfur going missing. Firestar and Greystripe's eyes narrowed, and the deputy sprang to his paws as if he wanted to dash and look for his missing children right away. "If a fox has taken them, I'll track him down and flay its skin," he snarled. Firestar remained in his nest, but he unsheathed his claws as if he were sinking them into the pelt of whatever had stolen his daughter. "Surely the dogs have come back," he muttered. "We couldn't have dealt with them more than... We couldn't have dealt with them more than once in a lifetime?" "No, there's no sign of that," Leafpaw reassured him. "Feathertail and Stormfur must have gone with Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw, and that suggests they had reason for leaving." She tried desperately to think of how much information she could give to the anxious fathers without revealing that she knew more than she was supposed to. So far, she had kept her moonstone vision of the traveling cats even from her mentor, Cinderpelt, and now she knew she would have to reveal it. She was not breaking her promise, she told herself. She would not betray anything of what Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw had told her when they met in the forest. "Firestar," she went on hesitantly, "you know how close I am to Squirrelpaw. Well, sometimes I can tell what she's doing, even when she's a long ways away." Thank you for the sub, Abdi! Thank you so much! And the follow. Double trouble. I'll talk more at the end of this chapter. Firestar opened his eyes opened wide in amazement. "That's impossible," he gasped. "I always knew you were close, but this... It's true, I promise. When I went to the Moonstone, StarClan gave me a vision of her," Leafpaw went on. "She was safe, and there were other cats with her." She met her father's intense gaze, and saw how much he wanted to believe her. "Squirrelpaw's alive," she finished, "and the others must be with her. 4 cats together will be safer than 2. Firestar blinked, bewildered. "May StarClan grant you're right." Greystripe's amber eyes remained full of fear and uncertainty. "Even if that's true, why did they leave without telling us where they were going, or why?" he meowed. "If Stormfur and Feathertail had a problem, why didn't they come to me first?" "We think the other clans might have lost cats too," Sorreltail meowed. "We should ask them." Firestar and Greystripe exchanged a glance. "Perhaps," mewed Firestar. Leafpaw could tell how hard he was struggling to sound decisive, to act like a clan leader instead of a desperately worried father. The next gathering is only a few days away. "StarClans keep 'em all safe," Greystripe added fervently. Leafpaw suspected that he had little faith in his prayer. He knew well enough the dangers that stalked outside the forest. As she left her father's den, she felt the burden of knowledge weighing even more heavily on her. She was the only cat in the forest who had heard that there were two prophecies, and knew what each of them said. "But I'm only an apprentice," she told herself anxiously. "I know them by accident, not because our warrior ancestors chose to tell themselves. What does StarClan expect me to do?" Leafpaw found it hard to sleep that night, fidgeting in her bed of ferns while Silverpelt glittered coldly above her. She longed to know what was happening to the journeying cats, but she could think of no way to find out. When she finally drifted into unconsciousness, she found herself in some dim place, racing panic-stricken among the trunks of shadowy trees. "Squirrelpaw! Squirrelpaw!" she gasped. She was answered only by the hoot of an owl and the bark of a fox. Death panted hard on her paws, drawing closer with every footfall, and for all her twisting and turning, Leafpaw knew that there was no escape. Chapter 19. Hi, Addie! Okay, we're at the chapter break. Keep reading. I support this type of reading thing. It's great for all parties involved. Yes! It's kind of like practicing reading for me because I'm not good at reading out loud. So like, it's good practice for me. It's good for people who want to revisit Warriors who haven't been able to read Warriors ever. It's a good time. It's a good time. We read the first series already, so now we're on the second series. All right. Hopefully we'll be able to finish this book today. That's what my goal is. I think we're picking up. I think we'll be able to do it. I agree. Also, is that Southern Tone for a character, is it natural? That was for Gray Stripe. I give Gray Stripe a southern tone. I try to give each cat a slightly different tone. When they're more like background characters, they kind of blend in with each other, but Gray Stripe has a, I give him a southern drawl. Also for Dog enjoys listening on when a character gets ended. Oh, true. We do have a death toll going, but only one has died. For now. Yeah, true. The second series is very, very full of death. Eventually. All right, chapter 19. Brambleclaw raced panic-stricken among the trees, bolting back and forth in a frantic effort to escape. Behind him, he could hear the throaty bark of the dog that had leaped out from a thicket as he and his companions reached the wood. Glancing back, he saw the lean black shape crash through a clump of bracken, its tongue lolling. He could almost feel its sharp white teeth meeting his pelt. "Starklan, help us!" Feathertail gasped as she dashed beside him. They had fallen behind the other cats, though Brambleclaw heard a yowl of terror coming from somewhere just ahead. "Dodge!" he called. "Try to lose it!" The dog barked again, and from further off, Brambleclaw heard a two-leg shouting. He lost sight of its pursuer, and he slowed down as a wave of relief swept over him. The creature must have gone back to its two legs. Then he heard the dog's snuffling breath, and it shot out from behind a fallen tree trunk. For a heartbeat, Brambleclaw stared into eyes like flames. Whirling around, he fled through the trees as the barking started up again. Confused by fear, he remembered how Firestar and the other cats of ThunderClan had led the dog pack through the forest until they fell into the gorge and drowned. But how could he and his friends lead this dog away, here in unknown territory? "Climb trees!" he yowled, hoping his friends could hear him above the fierce barking that sounded louder than ever. He glanced upwards as he ran, but every tree seemed to have a smooth trunk with no low-growing branches. He could not stop and search. The beast would be on him at once. Had it already caught one of them? Was he about to find one of his companions terribly injured like Brightheart, or worse, dead? His breath was rasping in his throat, and his paws burned with every step. He knew he could not keep this pace for much longer. Then he heard a voice hiss at him from somewhere above his head. "Up here! Quick!" Brambleclaw skidded to a halt beside a tree that was covered in ivy. A pair of eyes gleamed down at him. In the same heartbeat, the dog crashed through a tangle of briars behind him. With a terrified yowl, Brambleclaw launched himself upward, clawing frantically at the ivy stems. They gave way under his weight, and for a heart-stopping moment he swung helplessly. The dog leaped up, and he heard a snap of its teeth and felt hot breath on his fur. Then he managed to sink his claws into a stronger ivy stem and hauled himself upward again. Scorepaw appeared below, shot past the nose of the dog, and clawed her way up the tree, overtaking Brambleclaw to crouch shivering on a branch. Brambleclaw scrambled up beside her. "Please, Addie." He spotted Stormfur and Tawnypelt clinging to another branch just above his head, and Crowpaw scrambling his way up to join them from the other side of the trunk. "Feathertail!" gasped Brambleclaw. "Where's Feathertail?" The dog was on its hind legs at the bottom of the tree, less than a fox length below him. Its claws tore at the ivy while it snarled viciously, drool spilling out of its jaws. The sound of the two-legs shouting came again, but a long way off. Then Brambleclaw noticed Feathertail crouching in the briars just behind the dog, staring out in terror. If she had tried to run for the safety of the tree, the dog would cut her off. How long, Brambleclaw wondered, before it scented her? Suddenly, he heard Crowpaw spit furiously. "Fox done! I've had enough of this!" The Wind-Clan apprentice hurled himself out of the tree, narrowly missing the dog, and hit the ground just beyond it. The dog spun around and gave chase, his paws scrambling on the dry leaves. While it was distracted, Feathertail bolted out of the briars and across the clearing to make a desperate leap for a thin branch that swung alarmingly under her weight. "Crowpaw!" Brambleclaw yowled. The gray-black Tom had vanished into the bushes. Brambleclaw could hear the dog crashing about, barking wildly, and the shouts of the two-leg growing closer. Then Crowpaw appeared again, his belly close to the ground as he ran all out for the tree. The dog was panting just behind him. Brambleclaw squeezed his eyes tight shut and opened them again in time to see Crowpaw take a flying jump and dig his claws into the ivy. At the same moment, the two-leg lumbered into the clearing and made a dive for the dog's collar. He was red-faced and yelling furiously. The dog dodged to one side, but the two-leg managed to grab it and clip it onto its collar. The dog's barks changed to whining as it was dragged away, clawing the grass and leaf mold as it struggled to return to its prey. "Thank you, Crowpaw," Feathertail gasped, still clinging on the swinging branch. "You saved my life." "Yes, you did," meowed Brambleclaw. "Well done." Crowpaw scrambled higher until he reached the branch beside Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw. "Big brute," he muttered, looking embarrassed. "Tripped over its own paws." Feathertail's blue eyes were fixed on him, huge as moons with shock. "Would have caught me for sure if you hadn't come in to help me," she whispered. As Brambleclaw's fear ebbed, he remembered for the first time the voice that had called him up the tree. It wasn't one of the clan cats. Looking up again, he saw a pair of eyes gleaming from the leaves a little way above his head. Then the leaves rustled and an unfamiliar cat emerged. It was a tabby tom, old and plump, with rumpled fur that looked as if he had never bothered to groom himself. His movements were slow and careful as he clambered down the tree to join the 6 journeying cats. "Well," he rasped, "you're a fine bunch, ain't no mistake. Don't you know that dog runs loose every day round about sunrise?" "How would we know that?" Tawnypelt spat. "We've never been here before." Tom blinked at her. "No need to get snippy. You'll know another time, won't you? Get on out of the way, then." There won't be another time, Stormfur meowed. "We're just passing through." "Thank you for helping us," Brambleclaw added. "I was beginning to think we'd never escape." Tabby ignored his thanks. "Just passing through, eh?" he mewed. "I'll bet you've story to tell. Why not stay a while and share with me?" He stood up and braced himself, ready to jump down into the clearing. "It's down there." Squirrelpaw sounded nervous. "What if that dog comes back?" "It won't. It's gone home now. Come on." The old cat scrambled down the ivy-covered trunk and ungracefully dropped the last length to the ground. Looking up, he opened his jaws wide in a yawn. "Coming?" Brambleclaw leaped down after him. He wasn't going to let this elder, or kitty pet, or whatever he was, show more bravery than warriors. His companions joined him, clustering around to gaze uncertainly at the stranger. "Who are you?" Stormfur asked. "Are you a kitty pet?" The old Tom looked blank. "Kitty pet? Living with 2 legs," Squirrelpaw mewed impatiently. 2 legs? "Oh, let's go." Crowpaw's ears twitched in contempt. "There are bees in his brain. We won't get any sense out of him." "Who are you calling senseless, young fella?" The tabby tom's voice was a deep rumble. His claws extended to sink into the leaves under his paws. "Sorry." Brambleclaw meowed hastily, with a glare at Crowpaw. The apprentice might have shown amazing courage, but that didn't make him less annoying. Turning to the old cat, he began to explain. 2 legs, like the ones who came to fetch the dog. "Oh, you're talking about them upwalkers. Why didn't you say so? No, I don't live with upwalkers. Used to once, mind you. Those were the days." He settled down at the foot of the tree, gazing into the distance as if he were looking back at a young cat he had once been. "If I'd a sleep by and all the food I could eat." Brambleclaw wasn't sure he liked the sound of that. Firestar always said that kitty pet food was nowhere near as tasty as fresh kill you caught yourself. As for sleeping beside a fire, Brambleclaw remembered the fire that swept through the ThunderClan camp, and the very thought of it made his fur prickle. "Talking of food," Crowpaw meowed loudly, "we need to go on and hunt. There should be prey somewhere among these trees. Here, you." He stretched out a paw and prodded the old cat, who had drifted into a doze. "What's the prey like round here?" The tabby opened one amber eye. "Young cats," he muttered. "Always dashing off. There's no need to catch your own squeakers in these parts. Not if you know where to go." "Well, we don't." Squirrelpaw flicked her ears back irritably. Where was I? "Please, won't you tell us?" Feathertail asked the old cat. We're strangers here, so we don't know about the good places. We've been traveling a long way and we're all very hungry. Her gentle tone and the pleading look she gave him from liquid blue eyes seemed to win over the old cat. I might show you, he replied, scratching himself vigorously behind the ear with one hind paw. That would be very kind of you, Stormfur added, coming to stand beside his sister. The old cat's gaze traveled over them, coming to rest at last on Brambleclaw. 6 of you, he mewed. That's a powerful lot to feed. Who are you, anyways? Why don't you have upwalkers of your own? We're warriors, Brambleclaw explained. He introduced himself and his companions. I suppose you must be a loner, he finished. If you don't live with upwalkers. Trying to sound as polite as Feathertail, he added, Won't you tell us your name? Name? Don't rightly reckon I've got one. Upfeeders feed me, though I don't stay with them none. They call me different names. I can't be expected to remember them all. You must have had a name to begin with, Squirrelpaw insisted, rolling her eyes at Brambleclaw. Yes, what was the name when you lived with the upwalker who had the fire? Feathertail asked. The old cat gave the other ear a good scratch. Well now, that was a long time ago. He let out a gusty sigh. A long time and a good time. I got more squeakers in that upwalker den than you youngsters have seen in your whole lives. So why did you leave if it was as good as all that? Tawnypelt asked. Brambleclaw could see by her twitching tail that her paint juice was running out. My upwalker died. The tabby shook his head as if he were trying to flick away a clinging burr. No more food. No more stroking by the fire, dozing on his lap. More upwalkers came after that and set traps for me, but I was cunning, see? I went away. But what was your name? Squirrelpaw hissed at him through clenched teeth. What did the upwalker call you? Name. Oh, yes, my name. Purdy. That's right, he called me Purdy. At last, Squirrelpaw muttered. We'll call you Purdy, then, shall we? Brambleclaw meowed, batting Squirrelpaw's muzzle with the tip of his tail. The old tabby heaved himself to his paws. Suit yourselves. Now, do you want food or don't you? He padded off through the trees. Brambleclaw exchanged a doubtful glance with his friends. Do you think we should trust him? No, Crowpaw replied at once. He was a kitty pet. Warriors can't trust kitty pets. Tawnypelt murmured agreement, but Feathertail meowed. We're all so hungry, and we don't know these woods. Would it do any harm? Just for once? I'm starving, added Squirrelpaw, her claws flexing impatiently. StarClan knows we could do with some help, Stormfur mewed. I can't say I like it, but so long as we keep our eyes open. Okay then, Brambleclaw decided. We'll risk it. He led the way, bounding quickly through the undergrowth to catch up to the old Tom, who was ambling ahead as if he did not care whether they followed him or not. To Brambleclaw's surprise, Purdy didn't show them anywhere in the wood where they could catch prey. Instead, he made straight for the far side, where a narrow strip in the grass separated the last of the trees from a row of two-legged nests. Purdy strolled unconfidently across the grass towards the nearest fence without even looking to see if there was danger. Hey! Crowpaw halted on the edge of the wood. Where's he taking us? I'm not going into a two-legged nest. Brambleclaw halted too. For once he agreed with Crowpaw. Purdy, wait! He called. We're warriors. We don't go into upwalker places. The old cat paused at the bottom of the fence and looked back, his face creased with amusement. Scared, are ya? Crowpaw took a single step forward, his legs stiff and neck fur bristling. Say that again, he hissed. To Brambleclaw's surprise, Purdy didn't flinch a single whisker, even though Brambleclaw would bet that Crowpaw could have ripped him apart. Touchy, ain't he? The old cat mewed. Don't worry none, young fella. There'll be no upwalkers round just yet, and there's good food in their garden. Brambleclaw looked at the others. What do you think? I think we should give it a try, meowed Stormfur. We need food. Yes, let's just get on, Tawnypelt muttered. Feathertail nodded eagerly, and Squirrelpaw gave a little excited bounce. Only Crowpaw stayed apart, staring ahead without replying to Brambleclaw's question. "Let's go then," Brambleclaw meowed. After a cautious glance from side to side, he crossed the grass to join Purdy, and the rest of his companions followed, even Crowpaw, though Brambleclaw noticed he trailed behind with his gaze on the ground. "Crowpaw knows about my saltwater dream," Feathertail murmured to Brambleclaw's ear. "He seemed in a good mood when he woke up, so I told him before the dogs started chasing us. I think he's upset." "Well, he'll get over it." Brambleclaw's patience was running short. He had enough to worry about without making allowances for Crowpaw's wounded pride. Feathertail shook her head doubtfully, but just then they caught up with Purdy, so she said no more. When they were all together, the old tabby pushed his way through a gap in the fence that led into a two-legged garden. Brambleclaw's nose wrinkled at the unfamiliar smells. At least two legs, the acrid reek of a monster. Though to his relief, that was stale, and a whole mixture of unfamiliar plant scents. Some of the plants had huge, shaggy flower heads that bent under their own weight. Squirrelpaw sniffed one and jumped back in surprise as it shed a shower of petals over her fur. Purdy padded across the grass and sat in the middle of it, waving his tail invitingly. Coming up beside him, Brambleclaw saw a pool of water edged with some hard two-leg stuff. Pale flowers and green leaves floated on the water, and in the depths he spotted a flash of gold, so bright that he instinctively glanced upward to see if the sun had appeared, but all the sky was still covered with cloud. "It's a fish!" Feathertail exclaimed. "A golden fish!" "What? Fish aren't golden!" Crowpaw sounded irritable. "No, but these are." Stormfur was sitting beside his sister, gazing into the water. "I've never seen anything like it. We don't get these in the river." "Can ye eat them?" Tawnypel asked. "Aye, there's good eating on one of those," Purdy told her. "I'm gonna try." Squirrelpaw gave the water an experimental dab with her paw. "Not like that," meowed Stormfur. "You'll just disturb them and send them all to the bottom. Let me and Feathertail show you." The two River Clan cats sat poised by the edge of the pool, their gaze fixed on the water. Then Feathertail flashed out a paw. A bright golden fish flew into the air in an arc of glittering raindrops and fell on the bank, where it lay wiggling and flopping. "Someone grab it before it falls back in," Stormfur ordered. Squirrelpaw, who was nearest, pounced on the fish and bit it behind the head. "It's good!" she announced, swallowing. Stormfur had already caught another fish, and soon Feathertail caught a third, so that Tawnypelt and Brambleclaw could feed. Brambleclaw tasted his fish with some suspicion, not knowing what he expected, but the flesh was succulent, and he polished it off rapidly. When Stormfur hooked out the next one, he patted it over to Crowpaw. "Come on, it's okay." Crowpaw gave the fish a contemptuous look. "We should be on our way, not messing about with this two-leg stuff. I would have never come if I'd thought the journey to the Sundrum place, or whatever, would take so long. I'm missing out on warrior training with my mentor." "I reckon you're just getting some pretty good warrior training here," Stormfur pointed out. "Come sit with me," Feathertail meowed persuasively, "and I'll teach you how we catch them." "Teach me as well, please," Squirrelpaw demanded eagerly. Crowpaw glanced scornfully at the Thunder Clan apprentice. He padded across to Feathertail and sat beside her on the side of the pool. "That's right," she meowed. "The trick is to not let your shadow fall in the water. When you see a fish, scoop it up as quick as you can, before it has time to swim away." Crowpaw bent over the water, a paw half extended, and a moment later flashed it down into the pool. He scooped out a fish, but it turned in the air and fell back into the water, splattering Crowpaw with a shower of drops. Squirrelpaw let out a snicker and Brambleclaw glared at her. "That was a very good first try," Feathertail soothed the angry apprentice. "Try again." But Crowpaw had backed away from the pool. He dipped his head and began licking the splashes of water from his fur, only to stop in disgust. "What sort of water is this? It's salty." "No, it's not," mewed Stormfur in surprise. Whatever he was going to say was drowned in a crash and an angry two-leg yell. Brambleclaw looked up to see Two-Leg standing at the open doorway of the nest, shouting. He gripped something in one hand and hurled it at the cats. It landed among the shaggy flowers just beyond Purdy. "Uh-oh!" mewed the old tabby cat. Time to go. He lumbered back to the gap in the fence. Brambleclaw and Stormfur followed. Tawnypelt and Squirrelpaw streaked ahead to slip through the gap first, with Feathertail on their heels. Crowpaw came last, as he emerged from the garden and raced across the grass to the shelter of the trees. He was spitting fury. Why take us there? He demanded, turning on Purdy. We should have never trusted you. Do you want that two-leg to catch us? The filthy fish weren't even worth it. Crowpaw, don't. Feathertail pleaded, dropping the fish she was carrying. There's nothing wrong with the fish or the water. I tell you it tasted salty, Crowpaw snapped. Brambleclaw was about to intervene. They had wasted far too much time, first from fleeing the dog and now in arguing, until he saw the glow in Feathertail's eyes. You know why it tasted salty to you and not for the rest of us, don't you? She meowed quietly, resting the tip of her tail on his flank. It's your saltwater sign, Crowpaw. You've had it at last. The gray-black cat opened his mouth to reply, but nothing came out. He stared at the fish and then Feathertail. Are you sure? He meowed, sounding astonished. Of course, you stupid furball, Feathertail purred. Brambleclaw thought that no other cat but Feathertail could call Crowpaw a stupid furball and get away unclawed. Why else would the water in a two-leg pool taste salty? It's Starkland's sign that we're on the right track. Crowpaw blinked and let his fur lie flat along his spine. What's all this about signs and salt water? Purdy growled. We're on a really important journey, Squirrelpaw informed him excitedly. Starkland sent us to find something vital for our clans. Journey? From where? What clans? Brambleclaw sighed. Even though he wanted to keep going, he guessed the old tabby was lonely. It seemed unkind to abandon him without even telling him why they were there. He had saved them from the dog, after all, and then led them to the shining golden fish. Come here into the break-in, he meowed. We won't be seen there, and then we can tell you all about it. All the cats followed him. Even Crowpaw didn't object. Stormfur and Feathertail shared the fish that Tawnypelt kept watch while Squirrelpaw poured out their story. Brambleclaw chipped in to correct her or explained when Purdy didn't understand. StarClan, the old Tom meowed with a doubtful look when Squirrelpaw told him about Brambleclaw's dreams. Talking to you in dreams? I never heard of that before. The young apprentice gaped at him. Her green eyes filled with disbelief that there could be a cat who did not know about StarClan. Just carry on, Brambleclaw meowed to her, not willing to waste time in long explanations. Squirrelpaw rolled her eyes at him, but went on without arguing. When she finished, the old loner was silent for a while, so long that Brambleclaw wondered if he had fallen asleep. Then he straightened up and opened his yellow eyes wide, with a fire in them that had not been there before. I know about this sun-drowned place, he meowed unexpectedly. I've spoken to cats who've been there. It's not far from here. Where? Squirrelpaw leaped to her paws. How far? 2, maybe 3 days' travel, Purdy replied. His eyes gleamed. Tell you what, I'll come with you and show you. His expression faded to disappointment when the forest cat said nothing. At last, Crowpaw voiced what Brambleclaw was thinking. No way. You won't be able to travel fast enough. I don't remember inviting you, Tawnypelt muttered. But he knows the right way, Stormfur mewed. Maybe we should let him come. He's bound to know a way through this two-leg place, Feathertail added, switching her tail towards the rows and rows of dull red two-leg nests that blocked their view from the horizon. That was true enough, Brambleclaw thought, remembering the trouble they had met in the last two-leg place. If Purdy really did know the way to the sun-drowned place, it might be quicker to go with them, even if he couldn't move so fast. Perhaps he was the guide StarClan had sent in response to Brambleclaw's prayer. He seemed the unlikely savior, but he certainly had the courage of any forest cat. Okay, he meowed, realizing with a jolt of surprise that the other cats were looking at him as if they expected him to make the decision. I think he should come. Chapter 20. Hi, Bucket! Do you miss anything? I guess guess you missed the first part of the book, but if you've already read this book, then you haven't missed much. They all died. Sounds like my family with that southern voice. I take absolutely no offense. I love making a southern drawl. I think it's so cool. All right. Taking a little sippy. Thank you, Peachy. All right. Let's carry on. Maybe after this chapter, I'll go get my cream soda. Oh. The sounds, they have faded. Come back. Coming back in. All right, they're back. All right. Where's my tab? Chapter 20. Purdy led the forest cats along the edge of the woods. It was the day after the narrow escape from the dog, and Brambleclaw was still struggling with doubts about his decision to follow the old cat. He knew that Crowpaw and Tawnypelt were unhappy about it too. But there seemed no other choice. More and more two-legged nests filled the horizon, and clouds still covered the sky, so there was no sun to guide them to the sun-drowned place. "Is there any chance of more food?" he asked Purdy as they left the trees behind and began to cross a grassy space dotted with clumps of brightly colored flowers. The fish yesterday wasn't really enough, and Crowpaw didn't eat it all. "Sure, I can take you to a place," Purdy replied, with a hostile glance at Crowpaw, who had been the most outspoken in voicing his distrust of the old cat. He led them to the other side of the grassy place, where there was yet another row of two-legged nests. Brambleclaw watched uneasily as the old cat flattened his belly to the ground and heaved himself under a wooden gate, grunting with the effort and shaking himself vigorously on the other side. "More two-legs?" Crowpaw hissed. "I'm not going in there." "Suit yourself," Purdy meowed, beginning to pad up the path to the door with his tail held straight up. "We'd better all stay together," Brambleclaw murmured. "Remember what happened last time?" Crowpaw snorted but said nothing, and none of the other cats disagreed. One by one they squeezed under the gate and followed Purdy up the path. Crowpaw came last, casting wary glances behind him. Purdy was waiting for them by the half-open door of the two-legged nest. A harsh glow lit up the space inside it, which was full of strange shapes and scents that Brambleclaw had never encountered before. "In there?" he mewed to Purdy. "You're expecting us to go into an upwalker nest?" Purdy twitched his tail impatiently. "That's where the food is. I know this place. I often come here." "This is wasting time," Tawnypelt meowed. Brambleclaw thought his sister sounded scared. Her claws were flexing anxiously on the hard scuff of the path. "We can't go in there. We're not kitty pets. Eating kitty pet food is against the warrior code." "Oh, come on." Stormfur gave Tawnypelt's ear a friendly flick with his tail. "There's no harm in it. We're a long way on our journey, and if we can get food easily, it saves time we would have spent hunting. Time we might need for something else. Starklan will understand." Tawnypelt shook her head, still unconvinced, but Feathertail looked reassured by her brother's reasoning, and both RiverClan cats ventured cautiously inside. "That's right," Purdy encouraged them. "There's the food. See? In bowls over there, all ready for us." Brambleclaw's stomach growled. The fish he had eaten had been small, and it had been a long time ago. "Okay," he meowed. "I think Stormfur's right. Let's go, but make it quick." Squirrelpaw didn't wait for his decision, bounding inside hard on Purdy's paws. Brambleclaw followed her, but Crowpaw and Tawnypelt stayed outside. "We'll keep watch," Tawnypelt called after him. Stormfur and Feathertail were already crouched beside the bowls, gulping eagerly. Brambleclaw peered suspiciously at the food. It was hard, round pellets like rabbit droppings, but the scent that came from it told him they would be safe to eat. Squirrelpaw thrust her muzzle into the other bowl. When she looked up, her fur was plastered into spikes by something white, and her green eyes were glowing. "It's good!" she exclaimed. "Purdy, what is this?" "Milk," Purdy replied. "A bit like the milk you suck from your mother." "And kitty pets drink this every day?" "No. Cats are lactose intolerant. Don't feed your cat milk." Feed it goat milk, if you really want to. Wow! It's nearly worth being a kitty pet! She plunged her muzzle back into the bowl. Brambleclaw crouched beside her and lapped up a few drops of the white liquid. Squirrelpaw was right. It was good, rich and full-tasting, with hardly any tang of two legs about it. He settled down and tucked in. The first hint he had of trouble was the sound of a door opening and a high-pitched two-leg voice carrying out above his head. Brambleclaw sprang to his paws in time to see a two-leg kit run through the door and scoop up Feathertail in her arms. Taken by surprise, Feathertail let out a startled yowl and began struggling, but the young two-leg had her in a tight clasp. Stormfur stretched up with his forepaws, trying to reach his sister, but the two-leg kit took no notice. Brambleclaw stared in dismay. Feathertail! He glanced around for Purdy, only to see the old cat padding calmly towards a full-grown two-leg that stood in the doorway, waving his tail in welcome. Then Crowpaw appeared from the garden, a black whirlwind with glaring amber eyes. See? He hissed at Brambleclaw. This is your fault! You let that old mange bag bring us here! Brambleclaw gaped at the accusation, but Crowpaw did not wait for an answer. He spun around to face the two-leg kit, lips drawn back in a snarl. Let go of her, or I'll claw you to shreds, he spat. The little two-leg, happily stroking Feathertail with loud squeaky noises, didn't notice Crowpaw, nor understood his threat. The back apprentice was ready to spring when Squirrelpaw slipped in front of him. Wait, Mousebrain! It's only a kit! Do it this way! She padded up to the two-leg. Raising her green eyes pleadingly, she let out a purr and rubbed herself against the two-leg's leg. Good idea, Stormfur exclaimed, and crowded up to the two-leg kid on the other side, purring. The little two-leg's eyes gleamed. It let out a cry of delight and bent down to stroke Squirrelpaw, and at the same instant, Feathertail, feeling the grip on her slacken, managed to wriggle free and leap to the ground. Let's go! Brambleclaw yowled. The forest cat shot out of the door and streaked down the path to the gate. As Brambleclaw squeezed underneath, he heard the little two-legged yowl loudly, but he did not stop to listen. This way! He shouted, headed for a clump of shrubs. As he dived under the low-hanging, glossy-leaved branches, he realized to his relief that all his companions were with him. A moment later, with a lot of puffing and blowing and scrambling, Purdy joined them. Get out of here! Crowpaw spat at the old Tom. It was you who took us in there, to be caught by two legs. With a pointed glance at Brambleclaw, he added, if you had listened to me, it wouldn't have happened. Purdy twitched an ear and showed no signs of living. I don't know what you're worried about. They're decent upwalkers. They wouldn't hurt no cat. Just keep her prisoner, Tawny Pelt growled. That two-legged kid obviously wanted to turn Feathertail into a kitty pet. I wasn't in any danger, Feathertail pointed out. I could have escaped by myself, except I didn't want to claw the little two-leg. She blinked gratefully at the ThunderClan apprentice, but Squirrelpaw had the best idea. Squirrelpaw ducked her head, looking embarrassed. If ever any of you tell the cats back at home I purred at a two-leg, she mewed through gritted teeth, I'll turn you into crow food. That's a promise. In spite of Crowpaw's protest, the journeying cats trekked on with Purdy as their guide. All day, the old tabby led them along hard two-leg paths that made their paws burn, where they had to slink along in the shelter of walls or dart across thunderpaths under the noises of monsters roaring down on them. By the end of the day, Brambleclaw was exhausted, finding it hard to put one paw in front of the other. His companions were no better. Squirrelpaw was limping with Crowpaw's tail drooped. Brambleclaw remembered that the black-pelted apprentice still hadn't eaten, and he wondered if there would be any prey to be found so deep in two-leg territory. Purdy! Called, forcing himself to quicken his pace and catch up with the old cat. Is there anywhere safe we can spend the night? Anywhere we can find food? Not kitty pet food, he added. We need somewhere to hunt. Purdy flopped down in the angle where two thunderpats met, and raised one high paw to scratch his ear. Don't know about prey, he rasped. There's a place we can spend the night just up ahead. How far? Tawny Pet growled. My paws are dropping off. Not far. Purdy heaved himself to his paws again. Brambleclaw had to admit the old cat was showing more stamina than he would ever expected on the seemingly endless journey. Not far at all. As Brambleclaw braced himself to set off again, he spotted a faint reddish gleam falling on the hard surface on the thunderpath. His head whipped around and He stared in horror. The clouds were clearing away on the horizon, and now, in the gap between two of the two-legged nests, he could see the setting sun. It was behind them. They had been traveling in the completely wrong direction. Purdy! His voice was a strangled yowl. Look! The old cat blinked at the red light in the sky. Fine weather tomorrow. I shouldn't wonder. Fine weather? Crowpaw hissed. He's been leading us all wrong all day. Squirrelpaw sank down on the hard ground and put her head on her paws. We're supposed to be going towards the sunset, Brambleclaw pointed out. Purdy, do you really know how to find the sun-drawn place? Of course I do, Purdy defended himself, his rumpled fur beginning to bristle. It's just, well, going through Upwalker places, you get turned around on yourself now and then. He doesn't know, Tawny Pelt mewed flatly. Of course he doesn't, Crowpaw scoffed. He couldn't find his own tail. Let's leave him here and carry on by ourselves. Another monster roared by. Stormfur, who had been standing nearest to the edge of the thunderpath, jumped back as a shower of grit splattered his fur. Look, he meowed. I agree that Purdy's leading us the wrong way, but we can't go off on our own now. We'd never get out of this two-leg place. Feathertail nodded glumly, padding over to stand beside her brother and lick the grit off his fur. Brambleclaw knew they were right. He forced down frustration at the thought of how much time they were wasting. "'Kay," he meowed. Purdy, show us this place where we can sleep. Everything will look better in the morning. Ignoring a contemptuous noise from Crowpaw, he set out once again in the paw steps of the old tabby. By the time they reached Purdy's sleeping place, the sky was almost completely dark, but their path was lit up with a harsh glare from two-leg lights like small, dirty suns. The old tabby led them to a stretch of shrubs and grass, surrounded by spiky fence with gaps between the posts where a cat could easily slip through. There was shelter, water in shallow puddles, and even the scent of prey. There, Purdy meowed, twitching his whiskers with satisfaction. This isn't so bad, is it? It wasn't bad at all, the Brambleclaw decided, wondering whether Purdy had really meant to lead them here, or if finding the place was just a lucky accident. Tired though they were, they hunted at once. The mice they caught were scrawny and reeked of two-leg place, but they tasted like the juiciest voles to the hungriest forest cat. Squirrelpaw polished hers off, looked around for more, and sighed. But I wouldn't give for another bowl of kitty felt milk. I'm joking, she added as Crowpaw curled his lip at her. Lighten up, will ya? Crowpaw turned his back, too exhausted for a real quarrel. To Brambleclaw's relief, it was not too long before his companion settled down to sleep. He curled up under some low-growing branches, where he could almost imagine himself back in the warrior's den. Gazing through the gaps between the leaves, he looked up at the sky, but the harsh two-leg lights cut off the glitter of Silverpelt. StarClan seemed very far away. The next day, they struggled on Purdy's directions. Brambleclaw felt as if he had been plodding along for the length of an elder's life, at the base of tall two-leg walls that were steep as the cliffs of the Sundrown place. By now, he was pretty much convinced that the old tabby was ambling along at random, not caring if they were going the right way or not. But the forest cats had no hope of finding their way out of the two-leg place. Clouds covered the sun again, so there was no help there, and now and again rain fell in a cold splatter. We'll never get out of this, Tawny Pelt echoed Brambleclaw's thoughts as they lined up to cross another thunderpath. Might as well stop complaining, Stormfur retorted. There's nothing we can do about it. Brambleclaw was surprised to hear such a hostile response from the easygoing RiverClan warrior, but they were all still tired, and after the night's sleep, even after the night's sleep, and hope was trickling away like water falling onto sand. As Tawny Pelt glared, her neck fur bristling, he stepped in front of her. Take it easy, both of you, he meowed. He broke off when Stormfur whipped around and pelted across the thunderpath, almost straight under the paws of an approaching monster. Feathertail let out a distressed mew and sprang after him. Don't take stupid risks, Brambleclaw yelled after them. The RiverClan warriors ignored him. Shrugging, Brambleclaw turned to Squirrelpaw, who was crouched beside him at the edge of the thunderpath, waiting for a chance to cross. I'll tell you when it's safe to go, he told her. I can do it, Squirrelpaw spat. Stop trying to sound like my father. She leaped out into the hard surface of the thunderpath. Fortunately, no monsters were in sight. Brambleclaw raced behind her, catching up as she reached the other side. He bent over her so they stood nose to nose, and his words came out in a hiss of fury. If you ever do something so stupid again, you'll wish I was your father. I'll be tougher with you than he ever was. I wish you were my father now, she retorted. Firestar would know which way to go. There was nothing Brambleclaw could say to that. She was right. The heroic ThunderClan leader would never have made such a mess of this journey. Why had StarClan chosen him? Why? He turned to the old tabby, who was strolling along the thunderpath as if he had all the time in the world. Purdy, how much longer is it to the edge of this two-leg place? Oh, not far at all. Purdy let out an amused purr. You youngsters are too impatient. A faint growl came from Copaw's throat, and he took a step towards their guide. At least age hasn't cracked our wits, he snapped. Get a move on! Purdy blinked at him. All in good time. He stood still, scenting the air, and then turned distinctively alongside the thunderpath. This way. He hasn't the faintest idea, Ropaw snarled, but he still followed. As with all of the forest cats, it was no longer a question of faith or courage. They just didn't have a choice. The day seemed to drag on forever, and when the light began to fade again, they were limping painfully beside a tall two-leg fence. Brambleclaw thought the skin on his pads must have worn off with so much walking on stone. He longed for the soothing coolness of growing things under his paws. He opened his mouth to ask Purdy to find them another place to stop, only to realize that he could taste a sharp, unfamiliar smell in the air. He paused to identify it. At the same moment, Tawnypelt came hurrying up to him. Brambleclaw, have you noticed the smell? It's like the Karen place on the edge of ShadowClan territory. We better watch out. There'll be rats. Brambleclaw nodded. Now that his sister had reminded him, he could clearly detect the scent of rats among the other foul reeks of two-leg rubbish. Glancing back the way he had come, he saw the rest of his companions were spread out behind, worn out by fear and uncertainty and the hard slog of the journey. Hurry up, he called. Keep together. A dry chittering sound interrupted him. Whirling around, he saw 3 huge rats squeeze under the fence to stand in his path, their naked tails curled high over their backs. Their eyes glinted in their evil wedge-shaped faces. What? And he could just make out the gleam of their sharp front teeth. In a heartbeat, the leading rat sprang at him. Brambleclaw leaped back and felt teeth sharp. Where was it? Brambleclaw leaped back and felt its teeth snap a heart breadth away from his leg. He swung upon and raked his claw down the side of the rat's head. It fell back, squealing, but at once another one took its place. More appeared from the other side of the fence, streaming into the path like a vicious, squealing river. Brambleclaw caught a glimpse of Tawnypelt snarling fiercely as a ring sank its teeth into her shoulder. Then 2 more of them struck him, and he went down under the withering mass of bodies. At first he could hardly get his breath. The disgusting stink of the rats filled his nostrils, choking him. He kicked out with his hind paws and felt his claws sink into fur and flesh. A rat squealed, and the weight of him vanished, letting him scramble to his paws again to slash another of the vile creatures as its teeth met his ear. Just beside him, Squirrelpaw was withering underneath the rat. One more death! One more death! Before Brambleclaw could make a move to help her, she threw it off and hurled herself at it, ears flattened and jaws parted in a vicious yowl. The rat fled. Squirrelpaw let go and turned to aim her claws at another that was clinging to Feathertail's back, sending streams of bright red blood running from its sharp claws. Brambleclaw threw himself back into battle beside Crowpaw, who was being dragged along the ground with his teeth embedded in a rat's leg. Brambleclaw dispatched the rat with a single blow of his paw and spun to meet the next attacker. Stormfur and Feathertail were fighting side by side at the base of the fence, and Tawnypelt, one shoulder bleeding heavily, shook a rat by its tail before dropping it and biting hard at its throat. Purdy had come back too, wading into the mass of rats and tossing them aside with one powerful forepaw. As quickly as it had begun, the fight was over. The surviving rats retreated through the hole in the fence. Crowpaw aimed a blow at the last of them, and its tail vanished. Brambleclaw was left gasping for breath, feeling a sharp sting in his tail and one hind leg, as his gaze at the remaining cats strewn across the ground, some of them feebly twitching. Fresh kill, he thought dully, but he could not summon the energy to gather the bodies together to eat. The rest of his companions huddled around him, gazing at each other with huge eyes, all their quarrels forgotten in their shared fear. Purdy! Brambleclaw mewed exhaustedly. We've got to rest. What about over there? He pointed with his tail to a gap in the wall on the other side of the thunderpath from the heron place where the rats were. Beyond, everything was dark. He could pick up the scent of two legs, but it was stale. Purdy blinked. Sure, that'll do. This time, it was Brambleclaw who led the way across the thunderpath. Every cat was so worn out that if a monster had appeared, it could have flattened them all. But Starclam watched over them, and everything was quiet. Crowpaw, Stormfur, and Feathertail dragged Rats across with them, while Squirrelpaw lent her shoulder to help support Tawnypelt, who was limping badly and left a trail of blood droplets behind her. Through the gap in the wall, there was a dark enclosed area behind a dead-looking two-leg nest. Rough stones were stuck out of the ground. Puddles of grease water had gathered among them. Crowpaw bent his head to drink and grunted in disgust, but he did not have the strength to complain out loud. There was nothing to use as bedding. The cats huddled together in one corner, except for Squirrelpaw, who went nosing around the wall and came back with cobwebs plastered over one paw, which he pressed into Tawnypelt's wound. Wish I could remember the herb Leafpaw uses for rat bites, she meowed. No herbs here anyway, Tawnypelt murmured, wincing. Thanks, Squirrelpaw. That really helps. We better keep watch, Brambleclaw announced. Those rats might be back. I'll go first, he added, worried that some cat would start protesting. The rest of you get some sleep. But if you've got any bites, give them a good lick first. All his companions, even Crowpaw, obeyed without question. Brambleclaw guessed that they were so frightened they were just glad to have some cat tell them what to do. He padded back to the gap in the wall and sat in the shadow, gazing out across the two-leg path to the place where the rats had appeared. Everything was quiet, leaving Brambleclaw nothing to do but worry about how the journey had gone so dastardously wrong. Most of all, he worried about Tawnypelt. They had all scratches from the battle with the rats, but his sister's was the only deep bite. It looked nasty, but he knew that of all the bites, those from the rats were feared most by his clanmates. How would they cope if the bite became infected, or if her legs stiffened so that Tawnypelt couldn't go on? A whisper of movement beside him made him jump until he saw that it was Squirrelpaw. Her ginger fur stood on end and blood was oozing from a scratch on her nose, but her eyes were still bright. Brambleclaw braced himself for criticism or some clever remark, but when she spoke, her voice was quiet. Tawnypelt's asleep. Good, Brambleclaw meowed. You fought well today. Dustpelt would have been proud of you, if he could have seen. He let out a long sigh, full of weariness and uncertainty. To his surprise, Squirrelpaw pushed her nose comfortingly into his fur. Don't worry, she mewed. We'll be fine. Starclan are watching over us. Breathing in her soft, warm scent, Brambleclaw wished he could believe her. No one died, Cardi! Also, hi, Corey! Chapter 21. Leafpaw jumped up from her nest of ferns outside Cinderpelt's den. The sun was rising, its rays glittering on drops of water that trembled on each fern frond and blade of grass. There was a chill in the air, reminding Leafpaw that Leafpaw would give way to Leafbear before many moons. At first she was not sure what had awoken her. There was no sound except for the gentle sigh of wind in the treetops and the distant murmur of warriors rousing in the main clearing. Cinderpelt had not called her yet Leafpaw's fur prickled with the certainty that there was something she had to do. Almost to her own accord, her paws took her to the mouth of the Cinderpelt's den. Peering into the cleft in the rock, she meowed softly. Cinderpelt, are you awake? I am now. The medicine cat's voice was sleepy. What's the matter? Shadow Clan attacking? Star Clan walking among us? No, Cinderpelt. Leafpaw shuffled her paws. I just wanted to check if we had any burdock root. Burdock root? Leafpaw heard her mentor scramble to her paws, and a heartbeat later, Cinderpelt poked her head out of their den. What do you need that for? Come on, Leafpaw, what do we use burdock root for? Rat bites, Cinderpelt. Leafpaw meowed. She sat down and wrapped her tail around her paws, trying to calm her heart, which was pounding as if she'd just run all the way from 4 trees, especially if they're infected. That's right, Cinderpelt slipped out of the den and made a quick tour of the clearing, prodding the clumps of fern with one paw. Oh, just as I thought. No rats here, she pronounced at last. I know there aren't any rats, Leafpaw mewed helplessly. I just need to check that we have burdock root, that's all. Cinderpelt's eyes narrowed. Have you been dreaming? No, Leafpaw broke off. Actually, I think perhaps I have, but I don't know what it means. I can't even remember what the dream was about. Cinderpelt's blue eyes considered her calmly for several heartbeats. This might be a sign from StarClan, she meowed at last. Then can you tell me what it means? Leafpaw begged. Please. To her dismay, Cinderpelt shook her head. The sign, if it is a sign, is yours, she explained. You know the StarClan never speak to us in plain words. Their messages in little things. Prickling of fur, the tugging of our paws. The feeling that something's right or wrong, Leafpaw put in. Exactly, Cinderpelt nodded. Part of being a medicine cat is learning to read those messages by instinct. And we both know how hard it is to make a leap of faith. That's what you have to do now. I'm not sure I know how, Leafpaw confessed, scraping the ground with one forepaw. Suppose I get the meaning wrong. Do you think I'm wrong? Cinderpelt's gaze suddenly grew intense. You must trust your own judgment. Believe me, Leafpaw, one day you'll make a wonderful medicine cat, perhaps even as good as Spotted Leaf. Leafpaw's eyes flew open. She had heard many stories of the gifted young medicine cat who had been killed not long after Firestar had joined ThunderClan. She had never, in her wildest dreams, thought that she might be compared to her. Cinderpelt, you can't mean that. Of course I mean it, Cinderpelt mewed dryly. I don't talk for the pleasure of hearing my own voice. As for burdock, you'll find it growing on the edge of the training hollow. Why don't you go and dig up a few roots, so we have plenty, just in case. As Leafpaw trotted out of camp, she tried to remember what she had dreamed about, but nothing came to her mind except from a picture of a dark two-legged nest and a harsh light shining on a thunder path. She wondered if the dream had really been a sign of StarClan. Instead, she had sensed that Squirrelpaw was trying to tell her something, though the strength of their link had dwindled in distance. Leafpaw had not seen her sister and the other journeying cats in her dream, but somehow she became convinced that Squirrelpaw had been bitten by a rat. Oh my god, guys. Sorry, completely off topic. One of my friends just opened Rain World. I think it's their first time playing. I'll have to message them later. Anyways. If only I'd gone with her, she thought helplessly. They need a medicine cat. Oh, Squirrelpaw, where are you? In the sandy hollow, Mousefur and Thornclaw were training their apprentices. Leafpaw paused for a few moments to watch, but somehow she could not summon up much interest. She felt as if the sunlight was draining all her energy away, so that she could hardly manage to put one paw in front of the other. The tall stems of the burdock were easy to find. Leafpaw burrowed under the dark, sharp-scented leaves to dig up the roots. When she had scraped off most of the clinging earth, she carried them back to Cinderpelt's den and laid them in a neat pile beside the other herbs. Tonight was the gathering, she remembered. When Cinderpelt had first told her that she would be going, she had been excited, especially at the thought of seeing Mothwing again. Now she did not feel as if she had enough strength for the journey to Four Trees. She would have given up every gathering from now until she went to join StarClan, if only she could be sure her sister was safe. Okay, 1 second. This is a break in the thing. I'm gonna message my mom, because I don't know why, I just had the most intense craving for sushi. And now if you're one of those people that get the craving of sushi when someone says that they're eating sushi, now you have to get sushi. Maybe get sushi tonight. Happy thanks. Alright. Never had sushi. Is it really that good? Yeah! I mean, it completely and utterly depends on your taste, because some people can't eat raw fish at all. there are non-raw fish things, but then again, there's a lot of like factors of it, right? Like some people, even if they can eat raw fish, they can't eat because they don't like the seaweed, or if they don't like, if they like the raw fish and they like the seaweed, they don't like how there's vinegar in the rice. Like it really depends. You have to try a lot. And sometimes people just don't want to try a lot. It's expensive to try a lot. But if you do ever have the chance, I would recommend just trying it. Give it a shot. It's really good. At least I think it's really good. And Peachy does too. I've eaten raw meat before. Well, it depends. If it was chicken, then yeah, you would regret it. But raw, like almost raw, like blue rare meat is still edible, like steak and stuff. I don't think pork can be raw. Ew. Ugh. Wait, I mean like bacon maybe? I don't know. It was, but it was not pleasant to eat. It was steak. Yeah, chicken is gross raw. I'm one of those weirdos that likes things like it looks like it's bleeding on my plate. So raw fish doesn't bother me at all. I probably prefer it over cooked fish, actually. We're the same then. You like raw meat? Okay. I'm gonna keep reading. By the time the ThunderClan cats reached the gathering, Leafpop felt better. She had snatched a brief nap in Sunhigh, her nose filled with the scent of burdock clinging to her fur, and awoken with the energy in her paws again. Oh! Yeah. I mean, like, I love eating that kind of food. It's like pretty much like, it's not like raw, but it's like, it's pretty raw. I'm a ravenous. I like to feel ravenous. I can't actually eat, like, if something is medium rare, I don't like to eat it very much because it's really hard for me to get down. I think it's because it's like dry? I don't know. That's why it's sometimes hard for me to eat chicken unless it's like really nice and juicy chicken. Okay, this is off topic. Maybe I'm just a warrior cat at heart. Maybe that's it. As she emerged from the bushes in the clearing at Four Trees, she saw Mothwing pushing her way towards her. Hi, Jarn. Hi there, Leafpaw meowed. How are you getting on? Good dial. Mothwing paused. Fine. I think there's so much to learn. And there are times I don't feel any closer to StarClan than before I went to Mothermouth. Leafpaw let out a wry meow. We all feel like that. I think every medicine cat in the forest has felt it at some time. Mothwing's huge amber eyes were confused. But I thought I'd be wise now that I'm a medicine cat. I thought I'd walk closely with StarClan and always know the answer to everything. She looked so dejected that Leafpaw leaned over and gave her ear a comforting lick. One day perhaps you will. We walked closer to StarClan every day. When Mothwing still looked uneasy, she added, Mothwing, is there something in particular bothering you? Mothwing started. Oh, no, she replied, shaking her broad golden head. Nothing at all. Only... Leafpaw never found out what she was going to say. A loud yowling drowned out Mothwing's voice as Tallstar, on top of the great rock, called for silence. Leopardstar stood beside him, while Firestar and Blackstar, the leader of ShadowClan, sat a little way behind. Leopardstar was the first of the leaders to speak. Tallstar, what kind of voice did I give her? Tallstar, she meowed. Rain has fallen many times over the forest since the last gathering. Do the streams run freely in WindClan territory? Tallstar inclined his head toward her. They do, Leopard Star. Then I take back the permission I gave you and your clan to enter River Clan territory to drink. From now on, my warriors will drive out any Wind Clan cats we find across our borders. She said nothing about the way that Wind Clan had gone on visiting the river even when they no longer needed to, but her voice was sharp, and Leafpaw could see the displeasure she was not expressing in words. Tallstar faced the River Clan leader, unblinking. Leopard Star, Wind Clan thanks you for your help and will not abuse your trust. The River Clan leader gave him a sharp little nod and stepped back. Suddenly, there was a disturbance among the cats in the clearing. A sleek tabby cat with massive shoulders rose to his paws. It was Mothwing's brother, Hawkfrost. With your permission, Leopard Star, I would like to speak, he meowed. Leafpaw was surprised. Young warriors did not usually speak at gatherings. Well, Leopard Star mewed. Hawkfrost hesitated, scuffling the ground in front of him with one paw in apparent shyness, though Leafpaw noticed that his ice-blue eyes flicked from side to side as if making sure that every cat was watching him. I'm not sure I should say this, but, well, when Wind Clan came to the river, they didn't just drink. I've seen them stealing fish. What? Tallstar sprang to the edge of the rock and crouched there as if he were ready to pounce on the River Clan warrior. How dare you? No Wind Clan cats have never stolen prey. Leafpaw knew that was a lie. She remembered Squirrelpaw telling her about catching a Wind Clan patrol on ThunderClan territory with a stolen vole. Did any cats see this? Leopard Star asked Hawkfrost. Don't think so. Hawkfrost sounded apologetic. I was on my own at the time. Leopard Star gaze racked the clearing, but no cat spoke. Leafpaw wondered if she should say anything, but she had not seen the theft for herself. Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw were long gone, and Dustpelt, who had also seen it, had not come to this gathering. She kept silent. Tallstar turned to River Clan leader. I swear by Star Clan that Wind Clan have taken nothing but water from the river. Are you going to condemn us on the word of one warrior? Leopard Star's neck fur bristled. Are you saying my warrior is lying? Are you calling my clan thieves? Tiger Star's lips drew back in a snarl, his teeth bared and his claws unsheathed. Yowls of protest broke out in the clearing from both River Clan and Wind Clan cats. Leafpaw watched the warriors turn on each other, spitting challenges. She felt her first stand on end, suddenly terrified that the sacred truce of the gathering had been broken. Did Hawkfrost have to start this? She murmured, half to herself. What should he do? Mothwing's voice was sharp as she defended her brother. Keep quiet and let Wind Clan get away with it? Every cat in River Clan knows that for a couple of mouse tails, those cats would steal the pelt off your back. Her amber eyes blazed as she sprang to her paws, as if she were ready to join in the fight the moment it started. A furious hiss came from her mentor, Mudfur, reminding her that medicine cats were meant to keep peace, and Mothwing shot him a glance, half angry, half ashamed. Wait! The single word carried clearly across the hollow. Leafpaw saw that Firestar had come forward at the edge of the rock. Star Clan is angry! Look up at the moon! With every other cat, Leafpaw gazed upwards. The full moon floated above the trees, not far away from a single cloud that was driven towards it. Even though there was barely any breath of wind in the clearing, she shivered. If Star Clan were angry enough to cover the moon, the gathering would have to break up. The warriors crouched down, their hostility fading to fear. Firestar's voice rang out again. Leopard Star, Tall Star, will you lead your clans into battle on the word of one warrior? Hawkfrost, is it possible that you are mistaken in what you saw? Hawkfrost paused for a moment, his eyes narrowing to slits as he stared at the ThunderClan leader. I believe what I said, he replied at last, but I suppose it's possible I got it wrong. I might have been dazzled by the sun on the water, or something. Then let there be friendship between River Clan and Wind Clan. Firestar meowed. Tallstar has already promised not to come down to the river again. And I'll keep my promise, Tallstar spat. But you should teach your young warriors to show a bit of respect, Leopard Star. Don't tell me what to do. Leopard Star was still angry, but Leafpaw recognized that the threat of battle was over. Above their heads, the cloud was carried away from the moon, as though StarClan's anger was fading. Remember how good life in the forest is in the forest just now, Firestar urged both leaders. Prey is plentiful, and the streams are full again. We are all well fed and prepared for leaf fall and leaf bear. There is no need for us to invade one another's territory. He flashed a glance at Blackstar, who had been sitting with a knowing look on his face, as though he were enjoying the disagreement between the other clans. That doesn't mean any borders are not well guarded. And so are river clans, Leopardstar hissed, but she took a pace back, as if acknowledging that the dispute was over. Tallstar moved away too, leaving Firestar at the front of the rock. Leafpaw knew what was coming. Her father paused before beginning to speak, and she guessed that he was choosing his words with care. He would not want the other clans to think that he had driven out his own cats. Quarter moon ago, he began, the warrior Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw, an apprentice, left ThunderClan. We do not know where they have gone, but we have reason to believe that they did not go alone. Turning to the other leaders, he went on. Have any of your warriors gone missing? Leopardstar replied willingly enough. Leafpaw guessed that Mistyfoot had told her she had already passed the news about Stormfur and Feathertail. 2 warriors have left RiverClan, Stormfur and Feathertail, just before the half moon. At first we assumed they had crossed the river to live in your territory, Firestar, since they have connections in ThunderClan. She spoke with an icy disapproval in her warrior's half-clan heritage. We can assume they all have gone together. There was a pause, then Tallstar cleared his throat and meowed quietly. WindClan has lost an apprentice, Crowpaw. It would have been about the same time, he added. I thought a fox or badger might have gotten him, but it looks like he might have been with your lot. A murmur of uneasiness broke out into the clearing. Some cats called out, How do you know? Maybe there's something in the forest picking us off one by one. A murmur grew louder, and a cat on the edge of the throng let out a wail of terror. Leafpaw could see cats exchanging fearful glances or springing to their paws as if they were ready to flee from the clearing. What about the dogs? Another voice yowled. Maybe the dogs have come back. Firestar paced at the edge of the high rock and looked down. For a moment he caught Leafpaw's eyes. She shivered. Surely he wasn't going to talk about her link with Squirrelpaw in front of the whole gathering. She relaxed as her father began to speak. We wondered about predators too, he meowed, but there are none of the signs we would expect to see in the forest. Believe me, Thundercloud would know if dogs were back. We are sure the cats left on their own accord. His calm voice seemed to reassure his listeners. The cats who had sprung up sat down again, though many of them still looked uneasy. What about ShadowClan? Firestar turned to Blackstar. Have you lost cats too? ShadowClan leader hesitated. It was always the nature of that clan to be secretive, as if information were as precious as prey. Tawny Pelt, he meowed at last. I assumed she had gone back to ThunderClan to be with her brother. Murmurs filled the clearing, as the cats tried to make sense of what they had just learned. That's at least one cat from every clan, Mothwing exclaimed. What does that mean? Sounding frustrated, she added, Why hasn't StarClan shown this to me? Leafpaw longed to tell her friend what Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw had told her before they left. She wondered if Cinderpelt would mention the omen she saw in the burning bracken, the fire and tiger that would join together, but somehow connected to trouble for the whole forest. But when she spotted the medicine cat crouched beside Little Cloud at the base of the high rock, her head was lowered, and she did not speak. What do you suggest we do, Firestar? Tallstar asked. There's not much we can do, Leopardstar interrupted before Firestar could reply. They're gone. They could be anywhere. Tallstar looked troubled. I don't understand why they had to all go together like that. There must have been some idea in their heads. I'd swear Crowpaw was loyal to his clan. Firestar nodded. They are all loyal cats. Leafpaw knew he must be thinking of his quarrels with Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw before they left, and his worries about the prophecy. There must be something we can do, Tallstar asserted. We can't just pretend they never existed. Your concern honors you, Tallstar, Firestar meowed, but I agree with Leopardstar. There is nothing we can do. They are all in the paws of StarClan, and may StarClan grant that one day soon they will come back safely. Blackstar, who had made no suggestions so far, added derisively, Hope is easy, but it catches no prey. If you ask me, we've seen the last of them. From somewhere behind Leafpaw, some cat muttered, "He's right. It's dangerous out there." Leafpaw felt as though a huge thorn was squeezing her heart. Her fears for Squirrelpaw flooded over her again, and she remembered her dreams about the rat bites. "Squirrelpaw," she murmured to herself, "there must be something I can do to help you." She found it hard to listen as Blackstar reported more two-leg activity around the Thunderpath, even harder when it seemed that the new monsters were all gathered around a boggy piece near the piece of ground where the cats never went. What does it matter? She thought distractedly. Who cares what two legs do? When the meeting was brought to a close, she said goodbye to Mothwing and hurried to find Cinderpelt. An idea had come to her. She was eager to get back to camp to try it out. On the way back to the ThunderClan camp, she made herself keep to Cinderpelt's slower pace until the two medicine cats were walking alone, behind the others. Cats from all 4 clans have disappeared, have they? Cinderpelt mused. She paused briefly to gaze at the full moon, now sinking below the trees. Leafpaw, you're worried about Squirrelpaw, aren't you? Do you know anything about where she is now? The direct question startled Leafpaw, and for a couple of heartbeats she did not know how to reply. Come on, Leafpaw. Cinderpelt narrowed her eyes. Don't try to tell me you know nothing. Leafpaw stopped and faced her mentor, grateful for the chance to tell the truth. I know that she's alive, and that she's with the other cats who have left, but I don't know where they are or what they're doing. They're very far away, I think, further than any of the forest cats have ever gone before. Cinderpelt nodded. Leafpaw wondered if StarClan had told her anything about the journey, but if they had, the medicine cat had said nothing. You might tell your father that, she meowed. It will help reassure him. Yes, I will. They reached the ravine at last. Leafpaw's paws felt weary as she followed her mentor down the gorse tunnel and into the camp. Cinderpelt, she meowed, will it do me any harm to eat some of the burdock root? It might give you a bellyache if you eat too much, Cinderpelt replied. Why? Just an idea I had. If I can tell what Squirrelpaw's thinking, she added to herself, maybe she can pick up something from me. She almost felt that she was stupid to hope she could reach her sister across such great distance, but she knew she had to try. Warmth glimmered in Cinderpelt's eyes, and she did not press her apprentice to say more. Before she went to her nest in the ferns, Leafpaw bit hard into the burdock roots stored in her den, and settled down to sleep with the bitter mouthful in her jaws. Burdock root, she whispered. Squirrelpaw, can you hear me? Burdock root for rat bites. Chapter 22. We're almost done. Cordy, I'm getting you sushi. Drago coming in to save the day. Let me check. Mom texted me after I suggested it, but if you have a break and can walk the dog, that would be great. Alas, I cannot walk the dog because I am Oh, hello there, kitty. You want to say hi to the pop cups? You want to say hi? Well, say hi then. What do you gotta say? Oh, that's nice. Look at this. What's this? Oh, very, very cute. Cordy, I think you will like it. If they give you the nickname Carnivore, I think you'll like it. Because that's one of the reasons why I like it. Because it feels like I'm eating ramen. I mean, I am, but, you know, makes me feel more like a wild beast. Hi, baby kitty. Okay, I'm gonna go quickly to run to the bathroom and get myself cream soda and let my cat out. I'll be right back, okay, guys? I need like another... I don't have a BRB thing. What are you up to there, kitty girl? Ooh, dwarf, an ancient one, old man. Old man. Cordy, you seem like... I don't know why, Cordy. You have, like, the energy of, like... To me, like, an elf. Like, you know the elves in, like... Lord of the Rings where they, like, run around, like... crazy and they have, like... wild bowmanship? I don't know why, but those are the vibes that you give me. Alright. I got my cream soda! It was handmade really close to where I live, which is really cool. I'm gonna open it. You're blind in one eye? That's where the blacksmith thing comes from. Could have like an eye patch. That is like the rawest cream soda I've ever tasted in my life. It's like I can taste the sugar cane. Like it's like it feels like I'm actually drinking out of it. Is it like I know a lot of blind people, it's like they can still see some stuff, but it's like a hole. It's like everything's black, but you can still see through like the smallest little hole type thing. Or it's like really blurry and dark. Alright guys, I think we'll be able to... We're almost done actually. I think we'll be able to... I think there's only a couple more chapters. Wow, we did so good today. Really blurry for me, like it's underwater all the time. Dang. I hope it doesn't make your life too difficult, Cordy. Your gaming skills are certainly extremely well, so it doesn't hinder your gamer energy. Chapter 22. Alright, let's continue. Brambleclaw crouched in the bushes and watched the full moon suspend in the dark blue sky. Back at Four Trees, the clans would have met for their gathering. And the thought of the clearing thronged with cats, of gossip exchanged and stories told, made him feel lonelier than ever. For another endless day they had struggled through the two-leg place, along the thunder path, through fences, over walls. At least they had left the worst of the hard ground behind them. Now the thunder paths were edged with grass, the garden surrounding the two-leg nests. And the garden surrounded the two-leg nests. They had found shelter for the night beneath some shrubs. They'd even managed to hunt. Yet the sharp teeth of anxiety kept Brambleclaw awake. He still did not know if they were going the right way. Purdy led them out confidently, but the twisting route he took among the two-leg nests took no account of the sun, and Brambleclaw felt as if the sun-drawn place were as far away as it had ever been. I think we're further away than ever, Cropa had scornfully echoed his thoughts before he had settled down to sleep. Worst of all were his worries of Tawny Pilt's shoulder. Though his sister was too proud to admit she was in pain, by the time they stopped for the night she could barely walk. The rat bite had stopped bleeding, but her shoulder was swollen, and the flesh where her fur had been had torn away and was red and puffy. Brambleclaw didn't need to be a medicine cat to know that the bite was infected. Squirrelpaw and Feathertail had taken turns licking the wound while Tawny Pelt slipped into an uneasy, shallow sleep, but every cat knew that it would take more than that to heal her. Brambleclaw jumped at the scrabbling sounds close by in the bushes, then relaxed when Stormfur appeared and crouched down beside him. Watch for a bit if you like, the Grey Warrior meowed. Thanks. Brambleclaw arched his back and drove his claws into the ground in a stretch. I'm not sure I can sleep, though. Try, Stormfur advised him. You'll need your strength for tomorrow. I know. With a glance at the moon, he added, I wish we were all safely back at Four Trees. To his surprise, Stormfur blinked at him sympathetically. We will be soon, don't worry. StarClan are with us here, just as much as we were at the gathering with the rest of our clans. Brambleclaw let out a sigh. Somehow, tangled as they were in Two-Leg Place, it was hard to imagine the starry warriors weaving among them. With a last look at the moon, he curled up and closed his eyes, and at last managed to sink into sleep. The barking of a dog woke him. He sprang up, quivering, only to realize with relief that it was too distant to be a threat. There was no dog scent close by. A gray light filtered through the bushes, and the leaves stirred in a chill breeze with a damp tang to it, as if rain was not far off. Brambleclaw's companions were sleeping around him, and except for Stormfur, who was not in sight, Brambleclaw braced himself, preparing to wake them and get them moving again, when Crowpaw lifted his head and scrambled to his paws, shaking the leaf mold off his pelt. "Listen, Brambleclaw," he meowed, sounding less aggressive than usual. "We've got to get out of here today. Things would be better if we could find a forest, or even a farmland. We might need to stop for a bit to let Tawny Pelt rest, and we can't do that in the middle of all these two legs. Brambleclaw hoped he hid his surprise at how reasonable the younger cat sounded, especially at how concerned he was for Tawny Pelt. "You're right," he agreed, "but I'm not sure. We've no choice but to trust Purdy to get us out of here." "It's a pity we ever let him come with us," Crowpaw growled. He padded to across where Purdy was sleeping, an untidy heap of tabby fur, snoring and twitching. Crowpaw prodded him hard in the ribs with one paw. "Wake up!" "Huh? What?" Purdy blinked at them and then heaved himself up until he was sitting. "What's all the hurry?" "We need to get moving!" Crowpaw's abrasive tone was back. "Or have you forgotten?" Leaving him to get some sense out of Purdy, too tired and anxious to go over and soothe the festering quarrel, Brambleclaw went to wake the others. He left Tawny Pelt until last, bending over to sniff the wound and examine it closely. "It's no better," Feathertail murmured at his shoulder. "I'm not sure she'll be able to go far today." As she spoke, Tawny Pelt opened her eyes. "Brambleclaw, is it time to go?" She struggled to sit up, but Brambleclaw could see that her leg would barely support her. "Lie still for a bit," Feathertail told her. "Let me give that bite another lick." She crouched down, and her tongue rasped in a comforting rhythm over the swollen flesh. Tawny Pelt let her head drop back into her paws. As Brambleclaw watched, Stormfur reappeared with a mouse in his jaw, which he dropped close to Tawny Pelt's muzzle. "There you are," he meowed. "Brushkill." Tawny Pelt blinked up at him. "Oh, Stormfur. Thank you, but I should catch my own." Stormfur just touched her ear with his nose. "You eat one," he murmured. "You need to keep up your strength. Catch more later." With a little nod of gratitude, Tawny Pelt began to eat. Ignoring the argument that was developing between Purdy and Crowpaw, Brambleclaw went to see what Squirrelpaw was doing. The ginger apprentice was sitting up in a nest of leaves she had made the night before. She was muttering something under her breath, and kept passing her tongue over her lips as if she could taste something foul. "What's the matter?" Brambleclaw asked. Trying to joke, he added, "Have you been eating your own fur?" For once, Squirrelpaw did not react. "No," she replied, still licking her lips. "It's just this funny taste. I keep thinking I should remember what it is." "Not salt, I hope?" Brambleclaw suggested lightly. He had never thought he would miss Squirrelpaw's smart remarks, but the seriousness made him anxious. "No. Something else. Just let me think about it and I'll remember in a bit. Something tells me it might be important." They set off again, with Purdy in the lead. The night's sleep seemed to have helped Tawny Pelt, and she limped along valiantly, managing to keep up with Purdy's ambling pace. Brambleclaw clipped an eye on her, determined to stop for a rest if he thought his sister needed it. The old tabby led them through more two-leg gardens and onto a narrow thunderpath bordered onto one side by a wooden fence and another by a high wall. 2 or 3 monsters crouched at the edge of the thunderpath, their huge eyes gleaming. Brambleclaw eyed them suspiciously as he and his companions passed, ready to flee if they roared into life. The thunderpath bent sharply to one side. Purdy rounded the corner, and Brambleclaw saw Feathertail heart and stared deceivingly in front of her. "No!" she spat with uncharacteristic fury. "That's too much! We can't go that way, you furball!" As if in answer, a dog started barking on the other side of the wall. Brambleclaw glanced around in alarm, but he could see no way for the dog to reach them. Anxiously, he bounded forward, and when he reached Feathertail, he saw what had upset her. A few A few fox lengths in front of them, the thunder path ended abruptly in a high wall. Blocking the path ahead was some dull red stone that had surrounded them for days. They couldn't go any further this way. Every muscle in Brambleclaw's body shrieked in protest at the thought of having to retrace their steps. Purdy had stopped to look back, an injured expression on his face. There's no need to be like that now. You have no idea where you are, do you? Feathertail demanded. She flattened herself against the hard surface of the ground. Brambleclaw wasn't sure whether she was trying to hide or preparing to attack their hopeless guide. And if she did, would he stop her? We've got an injured cat with us. We can't spend all day trapsing after you up and down this vile place. Steady. Crowpaw came up and bent over Feathertail, rasping his tongue over her ear. Just ignore the old fool. We'll make a plan and get out of here ourselves. Feathertail bared her teeth at him. How can we? We don't know where we are. Behind the wall, the dog was going crazy, letting out a flurry of high-pitched barks. Brambleclaw tensed, ready to run if it found a way out of its garden. Behind him, Stormfur bounded around the corner, checked his pace as he realized the dog was no immediate danger, and went over to his sister. A moment later, Squirrelpaw arrived with Tawny Pelt. What's going on? Asked the ThunderClan apprentice. Where's Purdy? Brambleclaw realized that the old cat had vanished. He wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or angry. Good riddance, growled Crowpaw. The words had hardly left his mouth when Purdy's head reappeared, poking through a gap beside the wall that Brambleclaw had not noticed until now. Well, the old cat meowed. You coming or not? He withdrew again. Brambleclaw padded over to the broken fence panel and looked out. He was ready for yet more two-legged nests, but gaped in astonishment. Across a narrow, dusty track was a grass-covered slope dotted with clumps of gorse, and beyond that, trees! Trees as far as Brambleclaw could see, with not a two-legged nest in sight. What is it? Squirrelpaw called impatiently from behind him. A forest! Brambleclaw's voice squeaked like a kit. A real forest! At last! Come on! He slid through the gap to stand beside Purdy. The old tabby was looking at him with a knowing gleam in his eyes. Satisfied now, he purred. You want it out? I brought it to you. Yeah. Thanks, Purdy. This is great. Not so much of stupid furball now, hey? Purdy asked, with a meaningful look at Crowpaw as the WindClan apprentice slipped through the gap. Brambleclaw and Crowpaw exchanged a glance. Brambleclaw suspected that Purdy had been as surprised as the rest of them to find a way out of the two-leg place, but the old cat would never admit it. Anyway, it didn't matter now. Two-leg place was behind them, and they could start looking for the sun-drowned place again. They crossed the track and began to climb the slope. Brambleclaw reveled in the feel of fresh grass on his pads, and the forest scents wafting towards him on the faint breeze. When they stood underneath the trees, it was almost like coming home. This is more like it, Stormfur meowed, gazing around the clumps of bracken and the long, cool grass. I vote we stay here for the rest of today and tonight. Tawny Pelt can get a good sleep, and then the rest of us can hunt. Brambleclaw bit back a protest. His compulsion to make for the sun-drowned place was growing stronger as time slipped away, but he knew they would make better progress if they stopped to recover their strength. The other cats murmured agreement, except for Tawny Pelt. You don't have to stop for me. It's not just for you, Mousebrain. Squirrelpaw pushed her nose affectionately into the ShadowClan cat's fur. We all need to rest and eat. Slowly the cats began to move deeper into the woods, clustering together and alert for danger as they looked for a good place to rest. Brambleclaw stopped every few paces to taste the air, but could not scent fox or badger or other cats. Nothing that was likely to give them trouble. But the air was full of Prent scent. His mouth began to water at the thought of sinking his teeth into a plump mouse, or better still, a rabbit. Before long, they came to a spot where the ground fell away towards a thin trickle of water beneath harsh hawthorn bushes. Couldn't be better, Crowpaw meowed. There's water and shelter, and if there are predators about, they won't find it easy to sneak up on us. Fire story! Hi, Sheen! And hi! I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Shout out to Discomplex. Shout out to Discomplex! Tawny Pelt, who was limping badly again, half slid, half scrambled down to the slope and dragged herself into a mossy nest between two twisted roots. Her green eyes were clouded with pain and exhaustion. Feathertail settled down beside her and began to lick her wound again. Birdie flopped down on her other side and immediately curled up and went to sleep. Right. You three stay there, Crowpaw mewed, and the rest of us will hunt. Brambleclaw opened his mouth to challenge him for ordering everyone else around, then decided it wasn't worth it. Besides, it made a nice change not to be expected to make all the decisions for once. Instead, he padded over to Squirrelpaw. Fancy hunting with me? He asked. Squirrelpaw nodded, as if half her mind was on something else. She followed Brambleclaw up the stream, and they were hardly out of sight of their territory camp when Brambleclaw spotted a mouse scuffling among the grass near the water's edge. In one smooth movement, he dropped into the hunter's crouch and sprang, killing his prey with a swift blow. Turning to show Squirrelpaw, he saw her standing with her head lifted and her jaws parted to drink in the forest scents. Squirrelpaw, are you okay? The apprentice jumped. What? Oh, yeah, fine, thanks. There's just something I can't... Her voice trailed off and she licked her lips again. Guessing that he wouldn't get any more sense out of her, Brambleclaw scraped the earth over his fresh kill to keep it safe, until he came to collect it and padded further into the wood. Thank you for the biddies! Oh my gosh! Where was I? Then as Brambleclaw was stealthily creeping up on a rabbit, she called out, That's it! Over there! Oh wait, I skipped an entire paragraph. Squirrelpaw helped, but it was clear her mind wasn't on the task. Usually she was a skillful hunter, but today she let a black bird escape by hesitating too long, and completely missed a squirrel that was nibbling a nut, barely a fox length away. Then as Brambleclaw was stealthily creeping up on a rabbit, she cried out, That's it! Over there! At once the rabbit shot upright into grass, and a heartbeat later all Brambleclaw could see was a white tail, bobbing up and down as it fled. Thank you for the follow, Cam! Hey! He exclaimed indignantly. What did you do that for? Squirrelpaw wasn't listening. She had darted down towards the waterside, where clumps of tall plants with dark green leaves were growing. As Brambleclaw stared, mystified, she began to scrape vigorously at the base of the stems. Squirrelpaw, what are you doing? He asked. The apprentice paused long enough to give him a glance from green eyes that glowed with triumph. Burdock! She panted, attacking the stems again. It's what Tawny Pelt needs for her rat bite. Help me dig up the roots. How do you know? Brambleclaw asked as he began to dig. You know that taste I told you about? I've been trying to think about it all morning. Leafpaw must have mentioned it when she was saying goodbye to us. Brambleclaw paused to look at her. Leafpaw had certainly told them about several herbs that she thought they might need, but he couldn't remember burdock root being one of them. Then he shrugged and dug harder. There was no other way that Squirrelpaw could have found out about it. Once they had dug up 3 or 4 of the roots, Squirrelpaw pushed them into the water to wash off the earth, and then gripped them in her teeth to carry them back to the camp. Brambleclaw followed more slowly, collecting as much of the prey as he could carry. When he reached the resting place again, he found that Squirrelpaw had already chewed up some of the root and was gently pressing the pulp into Tawny Pelt's injured shoulder. The Shadow Clan warrior lay still, watching, but as the juice from the root seeped into her wound, she relaxed and let out a long sigh. That's better, she mewed. It's going numb. I can't feel the pain anymore. That's brilliant, Brambleclaw meowed. I think you must be a secret medicine cat, Tawny Pelt said to Squirrelpaw, setting herself more comfortably into the moss. Perhaps you're carrying a bit of your sister's spirit. Blinking drowsily, she sank back into sleep. Squirrelpaw was watching Tawny Pelt with shining eyes, and Brambleclaw felt his fur prickle. Had Leafpaw really mentioned the burdock root back in the forest, or was there something more mysterious going on between her and her sister? He went back to the wood to collect the rest of the prey. By the time he returned, Stormfur and Crowpaw had also brought back a good catch. For the first time in many days, they were able to eat as much as they wanted. Purdy woke up and gulped down the fresh kill enthusiastically, as if he found it much tastier than the kitty pet food he was used to. They all slept well. When he woke, Brambleclaw saw that the clouds had vanished, and the sunlight was angling through the trees, bathing the forest in a reddish glow. Springing up, he climbed as high as he could above the stream, and managed to find the gap in the trees so that he could see which way the sun was going down. This is the path we have to take. Stormfur scrambled up the slope to stand beside him, and his voice was as calm and determined as if he had shared the vision himself. That's where we will find what midnight tells us. Brambleclaw's paws itched to race towards the setting sun, as if he knew for certain that Blue Star was waiting there to tell him exactly how he could save the forest. But he knew that it was more sensible to stick to their original plan and spend the night in the wood. Carefully, noting the direction they needed to travel, he went back to his friends beside the stream. Tawny Pelt was tearing ravenously into a rabbit. She paused to nod a greeting to Brambleclaw as he appeared. I'm finished. Oh, I'm famished, she admitted. My shoulder feels much better. What did you say that was you put on it, Squirrelpaw? Burdock root. Brambleclaw noticed that Squirrelpaw did not try to explain how she knew that burdock root was the right remedy for the infected bite. Perhaps she was wondering about it too. She began chewing up another one of the roots, and when Tawny Pelt had finished eating, she applied more of it to her wound. Brambleclaw noticed that the swelling had gone down and the angry red color had faded. He breathed a silent thanks to StarClan and to Leafpaw for his sister's recovery. By the time they set out the next morning, after another good meal, Tawny Pelt looked almost like her old self. She was barely limping at all, and her eyes were bright again. Long before sunhide, they came to the edge of the forest. Ahead of them was open country for as far as they could see. The ground rose and fell in a series of gentle slopes. Wind rippled over short, springy grass interspersed with creeping trefoil and wild thyme. It looked to be easy-going, and the air had a fresh tang. Like home, Crowpaw murmured, obviously remembered the open moorland of WindClan. Unlike the WindClan apprentice, Brambleclaw was reluctant to leave the trees behind. The shelter of the canopy had been comforting, but the food and the rest had given them all new strength, and he hoped that at last they were coming to the end of their journey. To his surprise, Purdy said goodbye to them before they left the trees. I don't feel right under open skies, he confessed, echoing Brambleclaw's own thoughts. I guess I've had too much upwalkers chasing me. I like to be somewhere I can hide. Besides, you don't need me anymore. StarClan, whatever they might be, won't be waiting for me at midnight, he added with a glint in his eyes. Maybe not, meowed Brambleclaw. Thanks for everything anyways. We'll miss you. Surprisingly, he realized that that was true. He had come to feel something like affection for the exasperating old cat. If you're ever in our forest, you'll be welcome to visit ThunderClan. As he finished speaking, he couldn't help hearing Crowpaw mew under his breath to Tawny Pelt. Your brother might miss him. But I won't. Brambleclaw curled his lip at warning at the WindClan cat. Purdy hadn't caught the apprentice's muttered words. I'll wait here 2 or 3 days for you, he promised, in case you need help to find your way back. Brambleclaw glanced at Crowpaw in time to see him rolling his eyes at Feathertail, who just shrugged. I was supposing you come back, of course, Purdy went on as he patted away with his tail high. You wouldn't catch me so close to the sundrown place. Shouldn't wonder if you all end up drowned. That's right, Squirrelpaw muttered into Brambleclaw's ear. Way to keep our hopes up. By the end of that day, Brambleclaw's hopes were fading. The heat of the sun had drained his energy, and with no water on these rolling uplands, his mouth felt like the floor of the sandy training hollow. His companions were no better off, plopping along, their heads down and their tails drooping. Tawny Pelt was limping again, though she did not want any cat to examine her wound. Brambleclaw could see the swelling had returned, and wondered how much longer she could keep going. There was no more burdock root here. Straight in front of them, the sun was sinking in a blaze of scarlet fire, tongues of flame spreading halfway across the sky. At least we're headed in the right way, Feathertail murmured. Yes, but for how long do we still have to go? Brambleclaw had tried not to share his doubts, but his anxiety was becoming too much for him. The sundrown place could be days away. I always said this was a mouse-brained idea, Crowpaw remarked. Then he sounded too exhausted to be aggressive. Well, how long do we carry on? Asked Stormfur. As all the other cats turned to look at him, he went on. If we don't find the place, sooner or later we have to decide. Do we give up or keep trying? Brambleclaw knew that he was right. At some point, they might have to admit defeat. But what would that mean for the clans, to ignore the will of StarClan and go home with the journey unfinished? Then Squirrelpaw, who had been facing into the wind to drink in the scents it carried, spun around to face the others, her eyes blazing with excitement. Brambleclaw! She gasped. I can smell salt! Yeah! Also, thank you again, Ken, for the bits and for the follow. I appreciate it. I think this might be the last chapter, or at least like the second last chapter. We're almost done, guys. Chapter 23. Brambleclaw stared at the apprentice for a moment before opening his mouth and tasting the air for himself. Squirrelpaw was right. Naked. The salt tang was unmistakable, carrying him right back to his dream, and the bitter taste of the water had surged around him. It is salt, he meowed. We must be close. Come on. He raced into the wind, with the sun dazzling his eyes. I'm being stripped. I'm being stripped. Did my side bangs not go away? Or did I not have them to begin with? Can't remember. Brambleclaw felt new strength pouring into his limbs, as if he could go on running forever until he soared into the fiery sky like one of the white birds that wheeled and screamed above them. Oh, there we go. Instead, he came to a skidding, terrified halt on the edge of a huge cliff. Steep, sandy slopes fell away barely a mouse length in front of his paws. Wave crashed at the bottom, and stretching out ahead of him was a heaving expansion of blue-green water. The sun was sinking into it on the horizon, its flames so bright that Brambleclaw had to narrow his eyes against them. The orange fire burned a path like blood across the water, almost reaching the foot of the cliff. For a few moments, no cat could do anything but stare. Then Brambleclaw shook himself. We've got to hurry, he meowed. We have to find the cave with teeth before it gets dark. Then we wait for midnight, Feathertail added. Brambleclaw glanced from side to side, but he couldn't see anything to tell him which way to go. Choosing a direction at random, he led the way along the cliff top. From time to time, they stopped and peered over the edge to look for the cave. Brambleclaw dug his claws firmly into the tall grass. It was too easy to imagine slipping over and falling into the hungry waves. Gradually, the land sloped down into the water, until the water was the only height of a tree below them. The cliff top jutted out so they could not see the bottom, and the almost sheer surface was deeply scored with ancient runnels of rain. As the cliff grew less steep, the cats scrabbled a little way down and made their way along closer to the water, sometimes even within reach of a salty burst of wave. Clefts, riven by ancient streams, split the rock, sometimes so wide the cats had to leap over them, and the grass frequently gave way to hollows where a few twisted shrubs clung the scent of soil. There are plenty of places to find shelter for the night if we don't find the cave, Stormford pointed out. Brambleclaw was beginning to think they might need to find somewhere to stop. The sun had sunk beneath the water by now, and the great orange flares still streaked the sky. The breeze was going colder. Tawnypelt could at least lie down, he thought, while the rest of them went on searching. His sister had fallen a little way behind. Brambleclaw was just bounding back to her, skidding on the edge of one of the clefts, when his paw slipped and he found himself sliding helplessly into the hollow. He scrabbled at the loose soil, but it gave way under his claws, showering him with dirt. He kept on sliding. In the shadows, he could not see the bottom, and he let out a yowl of alarm. Brambleclaw! Stormford leaped into the hollow beside him and tried to sink his claws into Brambleclaw's shoulder, but Brambleclaw felt more of the soil give way, and they both slid downwards more rapidly than before. Soil splattered over Brambleclaw's face, stinging his eyes and choking him. From somewhere above, he heard an ear-splitting yowl, and Squirrelpaw launched herself practically on top of him. No! Go back! He choked out, getting a mouthful of soil. Then the shifting soil vanished, and there was nothing beneath him at all. He fell, howling, for a few terrified heartbeats, and landed with a thump on damp pebbles. For a moment he lay stunned. A booming echo thundered in his ears, and he felt as if the whole world were spinning around. Then he opened his eyes and stared in horror as he saw the shapes of a massive gaping mouth with teeth closing in on him, outlined against the red evening sky. He tried to scramble up, but the sudden rush of water swept him off his paws. His yowl of terror was cut off abruptly as water swirled into his mouth with the terrifying salt taste in his dream. Brambleclaw flailed with all his strength, but the waves hurled him mercilessly towards the teeth and then tossed him back again, far under the cliff. He did not know where he was or which way he should try to swim. Water filled his eyes and ears, roaring around him. He gasped for breath, only to swallow more of the salt water. And his frantic struggles were growing weaker, and the cold, stiffening waves were closing over his head when he felt a sharp pain in one shoulder. Suddenly, the pressure on his fur vanished and he could breathe again. Coughing up water, he turned his head and saw Squirrel Paw's eyes blazing at him, her teeth fastened firmly in his fur. "No!" he gasped. You can't! You'll drown!" Squirrel Paw could not reply without letting go of him. Her only response was to kick out strongly with all four paws. Brambleclaw felt pebbles shifting under his feet, and then the waves washed them back towards the teeth. Summoning the last gripe of strength, he thrashed the water, trying to drive himself and Squirrel Paw away from the spiky rocks. The water surged and lifted them up. He got a brief glimpse of a soddy dark and gray fur, storm fur, beside him, before the waves sent them crashing down to the hard ground. The breath driven out of him, Brambleclaw scrambled along the rolling pebbles while the shallow, sucking water threatened to drag him back again. Squirrel Paw still gripped his shoulder, pulled him up, and he felt another calf give a shove behind him. At last he collapsed on a solid rock and lay still, letting the world drift away. A paw prodded against his flank roused him. "Brambleclaw?" It was Squirrel Paw, sounding desperately anxious. "Brambleclaw, are you all right?" Brambleclaw opened his mouth and let out a moan. His fur was soaked and he was ice cold. He felt too exhausted to move. Every muscle shrieked with pain, and his stomach felt stented from all the water he had swallowed. But at least he was alive. He managed to raise his head. "I'm fine," he rasped. "Oh, Brambleclaw, I thought you were dead!" As his vision cleared, he could make out Squirrel Paw bending over him. He could not remember ever seeing her so upset, not even when her father had been angry with her back in the forest. The sight of her troubled eyes urged him to make an effort. He sat up and instantly vomited up several mouthfuls of seawater. "I'm not dead," he coughed. "Thanks to you. You were great, Squirrel Paw." "She took a huge risk." That was Storm for his voice. The Grey Warrior was standing over Brambleclaw, with his fur plastered to his body. He looked much smaller than Brambleclaw was used to. He sounded disapprovingly, and yet there was a glow in his eyes as he looked at Squirrel Paw. But it was a very brave thing she did. A stupid one. With a start of surprise, Brambleclaw realized that Tawny Pelt was there as well, standing close by with water washing around her paws, and her eyes narrowed and angered. "What if you both drowned?" "Well, we didn't." Squirrel Paw flashed at her. "Could have helped." With that infected bite, Stormfur pressed his muzzle briefly against Tawny Pelt's flank. "Starclan knows you managed to get down here at all." "I fell, like the rest of you." Tawny Pelt's voice was wry, and she relaxed a little as she looked at Squirrel Paw. "I'm sorry," she meowed. "You were brave. Just that I'm finding it hard being injured and not able to help. Like you, I thought we'd lost Brambleclaw for good." By now, Brambleclaw was beginning to feel better, enough to look around and recognize the cave of his dream. He was inside it! The gaping mouth with the ring of teeth was the one at the end. Water washed through in a strange, ceaseless rhythm, crashing in with a roar and then hissing out again, rolling the pebbles over the floor as it went. The rock walls were smooth and rounded. The ground sloped upwards to the back of the cave, which was lost in shadows. The only light came from the mouth, and from a small hole high in the roof, where Feathertail and Crowpaw were peering anxiously down. Oh, okay, so I guess they were walking and they fell into the cave, and then fell down more into the cave, and then the cave was kind of like an underwater cave? So like the only way out of the cave was in more water? I'm guessing. Where was I? "Are you all right?" Feathertail called. "I'm fine." Brambleclaw rose shakily to his paws. "I think we found what we were looking for." "Hold on." "Oh, hold on, we're coming down," meowed Crowpaw. Brambleclaw almost called out an order to stay where they were, which Crowpaw would certainly have disobeyed. When he looked more closely, he could see a series of ledges and clefts in the rock wall where it would be possible to climb safely down and then to get out again. Feathertail and Crowpaw picked their way down carefully until they reached the cave floor and stood around, looking, blinking. One of those things where words would just be too confusing to describe. It was like, it's obviously, like, from a writer's standpoint, right? It's like, obviously, you want to create a danger, right? Like the urgency of confusion. You want to feel like Brambleclaw felt. Falling, not knowing where you are. There's water everywhere. There's soil. He's going under. He's getting pulled in by a current because of the way that the cave is positioned with the water, etc., etc. But then when you actually have to imagine it, it's really hard to imagine. So it's good to always like take a step back and be like, all right, what is even happening right now? Where are they? So they're in some sort of like underwater cave right now. Right. Do we have to stay here until midnight? Squirrelpaw asked, raising her head from licking her damp chest fur. Her voice echoed strangely around the walls. I suppose... Brambleclaw began, then stopped, his muscles tensing. From the darkness at the base of the back of the cave came a heavy, scratching noise. A powerful, rank scent reached his nostrils. The shadow moved, not wholly black, but patched with white. Then, lumbering into the dim light, came a shape that was terrifyingly familiar, one of the deadliest enemies in the forest for the forest cats. A badger! Chapter 24. This is the last chapter, I think. Brambleclaw glanced wildly over his shoulder, but there was nowhere to flee except into the water. The difficult climb back to the hole in the cave roof would take too long. Guilt crashed over him with the cold force of the waves that had almost drowned him. All his visions, all his certainty, had led his companions to this dreadful place, where they would find no knowledge, no visions from Starkland, only a pointless and horrible death. What use were faith and courage now when they were trapped like rabbits in a hole? Crowpaw had flattened himself to the ground and was creeping forward with his teeth bared in a snarl. Stormfur was edging around the badger to attack it from the side. Despairingly, Brambleclaw knew that they were headed to meet their death. Even all 6 of them, weak and starving as they were and worn out by the travels and the struggle in the water, could not hope to defeat a badger. Caught as they were by the choking waves, it would not be long before the blunt claws and snapping jaws picked them off, one by one. The badger had paused on the edge of the shadows that filled the black of the cave. Its powerful shoulders were hunched, and its claws scraped on the ground. Its head swung to and fro, the white stripe glimmering as if it were deciding which of them to attack first. Then it spoke. Midnight has come. Brambleclaw's mouth fell open, and for a moment he felt as if the ground had given way beneath him. Then a badger could speak, could say words that he understood. Words that actually meant something. He stared in disbelief, his heart pounding. I am Midnight. The badger's voice was deep and rasping, the sound of pebbles churning under the waves. With you, I must speak. Mouse dung! Crowpaw spat. The WindClan apprentice was still crouched, ready to spring. Make one move and you'll have my claws in your eyes! No, wait! No, Crowpaw, wait! The badger's throaty laughter interrupted Brambleclaw. Fierce, is he not? Starkland have chosen well, but there will be no clawing this day. Here is talk, not fight. Brambleclaw and his companions uncertainly looked at each other, their tails bristling. Crowpaw put words to what they were thinking. Are we gonna trust it? What else can we do? Feathertail responded, blinking. Brambleclaw weighed up the badger again. It was smaller than the one he had seen at Snake Rocks, probably a female, but no less dangerous for that. Believing what she said went against everything he had been taught as a kit. Yet so far she had made no move to attack them. He even thought that he could make out a gleam of humor in her eyes. Glanced back at his friends. Crowpaw, Stormfur, and Feathertail might have managed to fight well, but he and Squirrelpaw were exhausted from near drowning, while Tawnypelt had sunk down onto the floor of the cave with her injured shoulder held awkwardly and hardly seemed to be conscious.
"Come," the badger asked. "All night we cannot wait."
Brambleclaw knew for certain that this was no ordinary badger. Never before had he heard a badger who could speak the language that cats understood, still less one that spoke of StarClan, as if she knew more of their wishes than any cat alive. Feathertail's right, he hissed. What choice do we have? She could have turned us all into crow food by now. This must be what Blue Star meant in my dreams when she told me to listen to midnight. She didn't mean a time at all. Turning to the badger, he asked out loud, You are Midnight, and you have a message for us from StarClan? The badger nodded.
Midnight I am called, and it was shown to me that I would meet you, though 4 were numbered to me, not 6.
Then we'll listen to what you have to say, Brambleclaw told her. You're right, 4 were chosen, but 6 have come, and all deserve to be here. But make one wrong move, Crowpaw threatened. Oh, shut up, Mousebrain, Squirrelpaw growled. Can't you see this is what we come here to find? Listen to what Midnight tells us. This is Midnight. Crowpaw glared at her through the gathering darkness, but did not reply. Midnight turned with a single word, follow, and headed for the back of the cave. Brambleclaw could just make out the dark opening of a tunnel. Taking a breath, he meowed. Okay, let's do it. Stormfur took the lead, with Crowpaw just behind him. Brambleclaw hoped that the apprentice would stop looking for a fight long enough to hear what the badger had to say. Feathertail gently nudged Tawnypelt to her paws and lent her shoulder for support as she staggered into the tunnel. Brambleclaw exchanged a glance with Squirrelpaw and was surprised to see that, in spite of her wet, exhausted state, her eyes were sparkling with excitement. What a story we'll have to tell when we get home, she meowed, getting up and trotting into the tunnel after Feathertail. Brambleclaw brought up the rear, with a final glance over his shoulder at the rocky teeth that framed the mouth of the cave and the waves that still surged back and forth. The last crimson rays of the drowned sun still stained the sky. In a single heartbeat, Brambleclaw seemed to see an endless river of blood pouring down upon him, filling his ears with the screams of dying cats. Brambleclaw! Squirrelpaw's voice cut in through the terrified sounds. You coming? The vision gone, Brambleclaw found himself back in the wave cave to see the color was rapidly fading from the sky, and a single warrior of StarClan shone down on him. Shivering, he followed his friends in midnight. The tunnel sloped upward. Brambleclaw could see nothing in the pitch darkness, but he felt sandy soil beneath his paws, rather than pebbles or rock. As well as the wary cat scent of his friends, there was a powerful reek of badger. Then he came out into another cave. Fresher air moved against his fur, and at the far end a hole led out into the open. A faint silver gleam filtered through it, telling Brambleclaw that outside the moon was crossing the sky. By this new light he saw that the cave had been dug out of the earth, with twisting roots entangled in the roof and the floor covered with a thick layer of bracken. Feathertail was already helping Tawnypelt to make a nest among the soft fronds, and settled down beside her to lick her wound again.
You have injury?
Midnight asked the ShadowClan warrior.
What gave it?
It's a rat bite, Tawnypelt replied through gritted teeth. The badger made a spitting noise.
Is bad. Wait.
She vanished into the shadows at one side of the cave and returned a moment later with a root clamped in her jaw. Burdock root! Squirrelpaw exclaimed, with a triumphant glance at Brambleclaw. You use it too?
Good for bite. Good for infection. Good for all sores.
The badger chomped up the root and laid the pulp on Tawnypelt's wound, just as Squirrelpaw had done in the wood.
Now,
she went on as she had finished.
It's time for talk.
She waited until all the cats had settled themselves among the bracken. Brambleclaw felt his excitement raising. He was only just beginning to realize that they had reached the end of their journey. They had found the place where StarClan had sent them, and now they were about to hear what Midnight had to tell them. How is it that you can speak with us? He asked curiously.
I have traveled far, and many tongues have learned, Midnight told him. Tongues of other cats, who speak not same as you. A fox and rabbit also. She grunted. They speak not of interest. Fox talk all of kill. Rabbit has thistledown for brain.
Squirrel Paw let out a meow of laughter. Brambleclaw could see that her fur lay flat again and her ears were pricked. So, what do you want to tell us? She meowed.
Much. In good time, replied the badger. But first, tell me of your journey. How come you from your tribes?
Stormfur looked puzzled.
Tribes?
Midnight shook her head irritably.
I brain Thistledown also. Forget which sort of cat's here. You say clans, not.
That's right, meowed Brambleclaw. He nudged away the uneasy thought that there were other cats like them, not loners, who lived in clans known as tribes. They had not seen them on their journey. They probably lived far in a different direction. With others to help him, he began the story of their journey, from the first dreams that four of them had to share, to his own dreams of the sun-drowned place and the decision to leave the forest. Midnight listened intently, with a low chuckle as the cats told her of their misadventures with Purdy, and an understanding nod when they described how they had all, in the end, received their own saltwater sign. So here we are, Brambleclaw finished. We are ready to know what StarClan's message is.
And why we had to come out here to find out, Crowpaw added. Why couldn't StarClan have told us what we needed to know back in the forest?
His tone was still hostile, as if he had not accepted that Midnight was not a threat, but that didn't seem to bother the badger. Feathertail flicked her tail out in a calming gesture, and at her touch the WindClan apprentice relaxed a little.
Think, small warrior,
Midnight replied to his question.
When you set out, you were 4. 6 with friends who would not stay behind. Now, you are 1.
Her voice grew deeper and seemed to Brambleclaw to be fully foreboding as she went on.
In days coming now, all clans must become 1. If not, trouble destroy you.
Brambleclaw felt icy claws rake down his spine. The shudder that ran through him had nothing to do with his sodden fur. What is the trouble? He whispered. Midnight hesitated, her deep, dark gaze resting on each cat in turn.
You must leave forest, she growled at last. All cats must leave.
What?
Stormfur leaped to his paws. It's mouse-brained. There have always been cats in the forest.
The badger heaved a long sigh.
No longer.
Why? Feathertail asked, anxiously kneading her paws in the bed of bracken.
2 legs.
Midnight sighed again.
Always is 2 legs. Soon they come with machines. Monsters is your word. Not trees they will uproot, rocks break, the earth itself tear apart. No place left for cats. You stay, monsters tear you too, or you starve with no prey.
There was a silence in the moonlit cave. Brambleclaw struggled with the dreadful vision of the badger had summoned. He imagined 2-legged monsters, huge, shining things with bright, unnatural colors, roaring through his beloved camp. He could almost hear again the screams he had heard in the cave with teeth, though now they were the terrified cries of his clanmates as they fled. Everything in him strained against what he had heard, yet he could not tell Midnight that he did not believe her. Every word she had spoken was filled with truth. How do you know all this? Stormfur meowed quietly. There was no challenge in his voice, only a desperate need for an explanation.
It happened to my set many seasons ago. I have seen all before. I can see what will come now. Just as stars speak to you, they talk to me also. All that you need to know is written there. It's not hard to read, once you know.
No more sunning rocks? Squirrelpaw mewed in a small voice. She sounded as scared as a kit without its mother. No more training hall? No more fortress? Midnight shook her head, her eyes tiny bright berries in the shadows. But why would the 2 legs do that? Brambleclaw demanded. What harm have we ever done to them?
It's no harm, Midnight replied. 2 legs hardly know you there. They do it to build new thunder path. Go here, there, more faster.
Won't happen. Crowpaw stood up with a fierce gleam in his eyes, as if he were ready to take on the whole race of 2 legs single pod. StarClan won't allow it.
StarClan cannot stop it. Crowpaw opened his mouth to protest again, but nothing came out. He looked utterly bewildered to think of a disaster that was beyond the power of StarClan to stop. Then why did they bring us here? Mewed a faint voice. Tawny Pelt had raised her head from her nest of ferns to fix her gaze on Midnight. Are we supposed to go home and watch our clans be destroyed? No, indeed, injured warrior. The badger's voice was suddenly gentle. For hope is given to you. Hope you shall bring. You must lead your clan away from forest and find new home. Just like that? Crowpaw let out a snort of disgust. I'm supposed to go to my clan leader and say, "Sorry, Tall Star, we've all got to leave." He would claw my ears off if he didn't die laughing first. Midnight replied with a rumble deep in her chest. When you reach home, I think you find even your clan leaders will listen. Terror seized Brambleclaw. What more had the badger seen in the stars? When they returned to the forest, would they find that the destruction had already begun? He sprang to his paws. We must go now! No. Midnight shook her head from side to side. Time is for rest tonight. Hunt in moonlight. Eat well. Let injured friends sleep. Tomorrow is better for travel. Brambleclaw glanced to his friends and nodded reluctantly. That makes sense. You haven't told us where to go, Feathertail pointed out, her blue eyes full of trouble. Where can we find another forest where all the clan cats can live in peace? Fear not. You will find, far from Two-Leg Place, where is peace, hills, oak wood for shelter, running streams. But how? Brambleclaw persisted. Will you come with us? Show us? No, Midnight rasped. Much have I traveled, but no longer. Now enough is this cave, roar of sea, wind and grasses. But you will not be without guide. When return, stand on great rock when silver pelt shines above. A dying warrior, the way will show. Fear clutched harder at Brambleclaw. Midnight's words sounded more like a threat than a promise. One of us will die? He whispered. I did not say. Do so, and you will see. Evidently, the badger was not prepared to say more. If indeed she knew, Brambleclaw did not doubt her wisdom. But he realized that not everything had been revealed to her. His breath grew shaky as he caught a glimpse of the other powers beyond StarClan. Perhaps a power so great that the whole blaze of Silverpelt was no more than the dazzle of moonlight on water. Okay, he meowed, letting out a long breath. Thank you, Midnight. We'll do as you say. And now we better hunt, added Stormfur. Dipping his head in a deep respect to the badger, he padded past her and up the tunnel out into the night. Crowpaw and Feathertail followed him. Squirrelpaw, you stay with Tawnypelt, Brambleclaw mewed. Rest and get your fur dry. To his surprise, Squirrelpaw agreed without question, even giving his ear a quick lick before settling down in the break-in beside his sister. Brambleclaw watched them for a moment, realizing how much they meant to him. Even the pesky ginger apprentice whom he had tried so hard to leave behind. Stormfur and Feathertail, too, were true friends, and even Crowpaw had become an ally he would want beside him in any battle. You were right, he meowed thoughtfully to Midnight. We have become one. The badger nodded gravely. In days to come, you need each other. She pronounced the words with all the force of the prophecy of StarClan. Your journey not end here, small warrior. It only just begun. There's an epilogue! Huh? An epilogue? We've never had an epilogue before! How exciting! Alright, epilogue. Oh my god, it's from Firestar's POV. Throwback. Epilogue. The long grass beside Thunderpath parted, and Firestar prowled out into the open, the weakened leaf-fall sun shining on his flame-colored pelt. Beside him, Graystripe sniffed suspiciously into the air. Great StarClan, it smells foul today, he exclaimed. Cloudtail and Sandstorm padded up to join them, and Leafpaw, the last member of the patrol, turned away from the clump of marigold she was examining. Cloudtail let out a snort of disgust. Every time I come up here, it takes me all day to get the reek out of my fur, he complained. Sandstorm rolled her eyes but said nothing. You know, there's something strange about today, Firestar meowed, glancing up and down the thunder path. There aren't any monsters in sight, but the smell's worse than ever. I can hear something, Leafpaw added, her ears pricked. The wind carried a deep-tongued, roaring sound towards the group of cats, faint with distance but growing gradually louder. Cloudtail turned to his clan leader with a puzzled look in his blue eyes. What's that? I've never heard... His voice trailed off, and he stood gaping. Over a rise in the thunderpath came the biggest monster any of the cats had ever seen in their lives. Sunlight dazzled off its gleaming body, and its shape rippled in the heat rising from the surface of the thunderpath. Its throaty roaring grew and grew until it seemed to fill the whole forest. It came slowly, followed by another yet another two-legged swarming. It came slowly, followed by another, and yet another. Two legs swarmed over them like ticks, yowling at each other, their words all but drowned by the roar of the monsters. Then, as the leading monster drew a brace of the 5 watching cats, the unthinkable happened. Instead of going past it swerved, crunched over the narrow strip of grass that edged the thunderpath and headed straight for them. What's going on? Greystripe gasped as Firestar howled, Scatter! He dived for cover in a clump of bracken with his deputy, while his deputy fled into the forest and turned to stare out from underneath a thorn bush. Cloudtail shot up the nearest tree and crouched in the fork between 2 branches, gazing down. Sandstorm headed into a narrow gully with a trickle of water at the bottom, pausing to look back only when she reached the other side, her fur bristling in mingled shock and anger. Leafpaw followed her and flattened herself in the long grass. The monster barreled forward on huge, black paws that crushed everything in its path. As all 5 cats watched, frozen with horror, it rammed its shoulder up against an ash tree. The tree shook under the impact, and then, with a shriek like all the prey in the forest dying at once, its roots tore out of the earth. The tree crashed to the ground. The monster rolled on. The destruction of the forest had begun. Da da da. Ta-da! They're cutting down the dang forest to make a highway. Typical. We did it, though! Look at that! There's only 1 death in this book. Very exciting. Typical humans. Typical humans and their dang whatever it is. Let's see. Warrior Cat Series 2. Yay! Thank you! Moonrise is the second one. Moonrise Warrior Cats PD. Yippee! All right. Alright, I found the next one. Oh boy, time for a lot of dead cats next book reading. Yeah, probably. They'll probably get killed by the thing. Let's read the synopsis of the second book. Warrior Cats Moonrise. The problem with like this coming series is like, I don't know, they're like Moonrise, Midnight, Sunset, Sunrise, like all the like times of the day, dawn. But I couldn't tell you what order they come in. I could not tell you. All right, let's read the synopsis for the next book. All right. Right.
The second book in the second series, Warriors: The New Prophecy #2, Moonrise, brings more adventure, intrigue, and thrilling battles to the epic world of the warrior clans. Moons have passed since the 6 cats set on a journey to save their clans. Now they are traveling home again, but on their way through the mountains, they meet a tribe of wild cats with a secret and their own mysterious prophecy to fulfill. In the forest, Firestar and Leafpaw watch ThunderClan's world crumble around them. Will the questing cats make it back in time to save the clans, or will they be too late? Dun dun dun! I actually don't know if... I can't remember. That would be cute, though. Like a hare named Dawn. Dun 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 dun. Alright, guys, we did it. We did it! Alright, next week, next book. I hope the warrior cats start attacking 2 legs. That would be nice. I don't think they can. I have like this vivid image of one scene of them in the forest, but I can't remember. You went to the zoo today and saw sand cats? Those are some big warrior cats for sure. For sure. Drago, that is such a cute Among Us sussy twerking emote. It's just like a bunny wagging his bum. Well, cats already rule the real world, technically. True. No, sand cats are tiny. They're bigger... Aren't they bigger than normal cats, though? Like house cats? Or are they, like, smaller? Are you talking about fennec foxes? They're literally just wilder-looking house cats. They even do little paw shake. Oh, wait, I know what you're talking about! The smallest wild cats, right? Or are there smaller wild cats? I don't know. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna end it here. We don't have a good zoo here, so I can't see any cool animals. I've never been to a good zoo. Have you been? Oh, I went to a good zoo. I went to the DC Zoo, the one that's like free. You can just go in and see them. I've been to that zoo. That was a good zoo. That was a big zoo. Wished it was bigger, but it was a good zoo. I mean, bigger in terms of like, so the animals had more room. That was the only zoo, the good zoo I've been to. The other zoos I've gone to, it was like depressing. Saw snow leopards too. They are so cute. Aww, baba. It's weird. I've been on safaris though. I've been on a few safaris, and those are a lot cooler in my opinion. One of the so I was like traveling and I was in a safari, and it was so cute because like they had this whole area right where the safari was, and then there was a bunch of like off-road trucks, jeeps, right? And then you would get like a tour person and they would drive around. But the thing is, they didn't know where all the animals were at any given time. They knew where they would hang out, but sometimes the animals could be like anywhere. And so they would have these walkie-talkies, and then they would be like, lion spotted over here, except they would say it in like a different language. And then all of a sudden they would turn around, and then the jeep is like going at full speed off the trail, driving, and then like we stop, and then we're like, okay, look out over there, the lion's gonna come out of that direction. And then we're all waiting, and then someone gets another call like, it turned around, and then we all like go driving back, and it's so funny. And it's so cute because you can see that the other like drivers, like they're all like in a competition against each other to like get the best spot, get the best view, to predict where the animals are going. It's just so fun. So you're like almost in like this little competition with the other people on the tour as well. I was in that truck with my grandma, and she's like, I mean, she's old, but he was driving so fast, and my grandma, like, there was a big bump because it's a Jeep, right? There's no seats. It's a Jeep. We're just in the trunk thing, and she fell, like, she flew off and then fell onto the bottom of the thing, and you could tell that the driver, he was so scared, like, he was so scared, but luckily she's like, she just had a laugh. He felt so bad. I love animals. Me too. They're fun. When I was at Disney, we went on the safari ride, and we accidentally got stuck in between because there was like some big giraffe standing in front of our car, and we held up so much. We held so much of the trucks up because we were stuck behind some giraffes. And it was so funny because at one point, a whole bunch of giraffes jumped out of like a bush and then started running past us. And they had like drool. And it was like the drool was like flying in the wind because they were running so fast with their like their mouths open. And so their drool was like flying in the wind behind them. It was so funny. It was really good old times. That was really fun. I love going on safaris. Because it's almost like, even if you don't really see too many animals, if you see one animal, it's like, oh yeah, you won. Like you won like the Where's Waldo. Good! Okay, I'm happy. Now we have to end stream so I can go look at the sand cats that Pappy left on Discord. Okay guys, Friday we're gonna keep going on our Cthulhu adventure mystery. It's probably gonna get a little more scarier now because I think I've been injected with the Cthulhu drug and I'm gonna go crazy. So yeah, that's exciting. And then on Saturday I have a collab with I know for sure Corey is gonna be there. You see Corey sometimes in chat. Serin's gonna be there. You've seen Serin sometimes, and Dunn is gonna be there. Who we know Dunn. I have collabed with him, and if all goes well, after that collab, me and Dunn are gonna play Minecraft afterwards. So it'll be like a double feature collab. Where first it's like Scribble.io with some friends, and then when that's done, then me and Dunn are gonna play some Minecraft. That's fun! You'll probably see a lot of Dunn because he's super fun. He's super fun and super funny. I'm really excited. Alright guys, I don't know who is live right now. Ori is live. I think Sarah is finishing. Oh, Corey is live. Speaking of, okay, yeah, I don't know if Sarah's gonna be there, but Corey is gonna be there. So I'm gonna raid Corey. Corey is the one hosting the collab, so you guys can say hi to Corey. Open up then, and we'll go like this.
With all the other people, so I'm just gonna play one now. Sorry.
Sorry, that was her voice. Okay. Oh, she's doing a Devour collab. Oh yeah, she asked me if there was a spot open, and I knew that I would be reading Warrior Cat, so I couldn't join, but yeah. Okay, guys, I hope you have a fun time today, a fun time tomorrow. Oh my god, I'm getting a... What year is it? Oh my god, I'm getting a trailer for a movie with talking animals? Holy moly! This is it. Strays? Oh man, I gotta watch this. Alright guys, say hi, be nice. I'll see you guys on Friday. If it's night for you, make sure you go to bed now. Brush your teeth, floss your teeth. If it's day for you, have a good day. Put on some sunscreen. And I can't remember what else I say. So, goodbye! Remember that moderation is the key to true happiness!